Hello, and welcome to the RPG Rundown. My name is Seth.
And I'm Jeff, from Dungeons to Deep Space to Roshar. We've got the systems and the stories for your table. Guys, we just got back from GenCon, and what an incredible time we had. Seth, this was your first GenCon. What do you think?
Oh man, it was awesome. And if you can tell, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so please forgive me.
I understand.
But I've got to struggle through because we've got to talk about so many things. But tonight, we're gonna talk about something special. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I'm super excited. GenCon was amazing. We got to hang out in person for the first time.
Yeah, that was awesome. We had fully intended to make an entire video, but we were just too busy. We made a couple shorts, so if you're not following us on TikTok and Instagram, follow there.
We thought we'd have more time, and we ended up working helping some vendors and
help them tear down and stuff.
So, but while we were there.
Yeah, so while we were there, guys, we had the chance to do something that we've both been really, really excited about. We've talked about it here. We've talked about it just personally. But my new favorite book series, the Stormlight Archives, has come out with a TTRPG. And we were able to test play it. And so today, we're going to be talking all about that test play, our thoughts, our experiences, if we're planning to play it again, if we're going to do the Kickstarter, just all of that stuff. So we're kind of jump into it. Let us tell you our first experience about it, and then just a little bit later, we're going to talk about our experience actually playing the game. And so I found out Wednesday where they were set up. And so I went down to the room on Wednesday, and the doors were closed. But you were in a conversation with your BattleTech buddies, so I was just like, I'm going to go check out the Stormlight room while you're doing this. And so I went down there, and the doors were closed. And I was like, that's unfortunate. So I just, pulled the door just to see if anyone was in there hanging out, what anyone was up to, and there was no one there. And I was going to close the door and walk away, but I really was. But they had this 6.5 foot tall Kaladin stand up, and I was like, well, I've got to take a picture with that. And so naturally, I walked in for just a couple minutes and took a couple pictures, little selfies and stuff with it. It was really awesome. The room itself was... Especially
with no one else in there. So
yeah, there was no one else. There wasn't traffic or anyone else running around. I was able to just go in, take some pictures. And one thing that was wild for me is I have not read the full series. I'm actually, 2 books from being caught up.
Let's correct that. You haven't finished the whole series. You are... reading them.
Okay. I am reading them. Yes, I have not finished. So I just read Oathbringer was the last one. And Oathbringer ends with a very specific scene. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. It ends with a very specific scene, a very specific battle. And as I walked further in, seeing Kaladin open the doors, walk all the way in, that scene, that giant battle scene is on a 20-foot wide sign that's 10 foot tall, 20 feet wide. And
it was big.
It was amazing. It was just...
Artwork was incredible.
Dude, the artwork is so good.
I mean, if you're watching on the YouTube, you will see...
You'll see.
Battle scene artwork, and it's so good. So,
and if you're listening, set a reminder in your phone to go back later and watch the video so that you can see the artwork, because it truly was awesome.
Absolutely. Or check out our socials. It may end up there as well, but...
That's true as well.
But yeah, going into Thursday was... the first day of GenCon, and we actually got to go in to the we kind of we walked by the booth on the exhibit floor, but we went into the playtest room that they had set up there at GenCon, and it was awesome. We got to see all the things they had going on in there. They were, of course, playtesting the RPG. They were also playtesting the Mistborn deck building game, which I'm definitely interested in. But
I've not read Mistborn yet, but I am interested. I love deck building games.
Yeah, it's going to be good. But it wasn't busy when we went in there. Not very busy. And so we actually got to stand there and chat with Johnny O'Neill, the creative director, for I don't know, 20 minutes or more. And they had an example copy of what the handbook is going to look like. Obviously, it was a preview, a concept copy that they rushed to put together for GenCon. But it was incredible. We got to see some incredible previews of artwork. I know we'll have some of that art and some of those images on the video here. But Ross, or we'll get to Ross.
Johnny, yeah.
Johnny was great and was answering questions and showing off all the artwork, showing off some of the pictures that of the different, kind of like radiant levels as they level up.
Their path to go on.
Yeah, their path. Showing showed us some incredible art of Navani, of Seth, Seth Sun Balano.
Yes.
It just, there's so many pieces of amazing art, and not just of the main characters, but of characters created for the RPG. And so it was just really good, really cool to see the handbook in person. I think we have some video flipping through it as well. But yeah, that was on Thursday, and also on Thursday was when we picked up a few fun things.
Indeed.
We picked up, first of all, this amazing
It's a magazine.
Chasm Fiend magazine.
The Chasm Fiend magazine.
If you're watching the video again, check it out. It is an homage to the RPG magazines of old, like Dragon Magazine, and it's so good. There's awesome pieces of art in here, that are just incredible. And it's not 100% about Stormlight. Like I said, there's a good spread in here about the Mistborn deck building game and stuff, but it's mostly about the RPG. And there's just some really cool behind the scenes art of
that's great.
Lift there. Some of the art process stuff, different styles of Roshar. I mean, come on, look at this.
Yeah. Which is really cool. Really brings to life. If you read the books, they talk a lot about like fashion and the styles and stuff. And it's somewhat hard to picture because, it's very different than the style we see. But it's really cool to actually see it brought to life in imagery like that.
Yeah, there's some really great articles on different elements of the development. And so if you have a chance to get one of these, definitely get one. It's so good and so it just definitely built the hype. But
in there real quick, I didn't want to go through the Stormlight RPG design just vision that they put out here. I thought it was really great. Yeah, it's in the Chasm Fiend magazine, and there's just 9 things that they wanted to do through the RPG. Number 1 was keep it canonical, so it's got to fit the Stormlight archives, books, and the world of Roshar. Balance uniqueness and familiarity, balance narrative and crunch, tie character development to game mechanics. That's really important, and we actually got to see a little bit of that. Balance combat and non-combat encounters, balance radiant and mundane characters. This to me is would be one of the most difficult things, because obviously if you've read the books, radiants are so powerful, and so how do you balance them to a mundane character? I mean, we see it in the book with Adolin compared to radiance, he's still who Adolin is, right? Number 7, tell new stories. Then publish beautiful books, and I haven't really got to hold the book in our hand yet, but everything that we have seen has been great.
But
we got to hold the concept. That's true, the concept. And then 9 is create a game that endures, and I'm about that. I really, really have high hopes for this game.
And I mean, we're going to talk a little more in detail about it for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think that honestly, this design vision, these goals, I think they are doing a pretty good job hitting this so far.
I feel that way.
You know, we talked about balancing the radiant and mundane characters, which is one of those things that I think, you know, for a lot of people, you might think it's going to be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Just from our limited playtest, I think they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I mean, well,
the
truly,
radiant players were so good.
Yeah, I want to say that in our playtest, our non-radiant player, there was one because radiants are awesome, but like our non-radiant player outdamaged the radiants, I believe. What was his out of Fabrian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was a pretty close tie between myself and our, but yeah, I mean, like, that was also just because I got a really good hit in, but
that's true.
But no, so that being said, I think the vision that they're putting forth their effort with this Stormlight RPG, I think they're nailing it, and again, just super looking forward to diving in further. Besides Chasm Fiend, which, by the way, Brother Wise, I hope that you guys do more of these. Whether it's,
I do, I really do.
You know,
yeah.
Whether it's quarterly, you know, or whatever it is. Excellent. I think the format's great. Would love to see it more. I also picked up the beta dice.
Yes.
And so, again, if you're watching the video, I'm going to show it on there. But the beta dice is pretty much a standard 7-piece polyhedral dice set. Has a D20, has a D12, has a D10, D8, and a D4, and a D6. But instead of having a percentile die, it comes with another D6 that is a unique die that is called the plot die.
The plot die, yeah.
And on it, it has custom icons for opportunity and oh my gosh,
complications.
I keep wanting to say conflicts, but
I know.
So yeah, there's that plot die comes in quite a bit. Honestly,
something really interesting too is if you get advantage or disadvantage, you can actually put your advantage on any die that you want. So whether that's your plot die or your hit die, right? Or your damage die for that matter.
So the plot die can get a boost. But it's also cool because it does, and we'll get to this later, but it ties in with the D20 as well, because if you get a natural 20, you actually get an opportunity, which, and then if you get a natural 1, where's that? There you go. You get a complication. Gosh, I'm gonna get it one day.
It is in one day.
I'm so tired. I drove hours today.
Yeah. So the day we're recording this, I got back home yesterday, so I've had a little bit of a day to rest. Seth drove 11 hours today, so
we are recording this in the wee hours of the night before launch day for the Kickstarter because we're that excited about it and we want to get it out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're gonna get it out. But no, the die set it looks really cool, but also it does have some really cool mechanics. And one thing that is also very cool, I will have a picture that maybe we can show up in the video here, but the plot die is a D6, and if you don't have the beta dice at home, they actually show you which size to assign to a regular D6. And essentially, you know, it's 1 and 2 are opportunity, or was it 5 and 6?
I think
reverse that.
No, I don't know. I think 5 and 6 are opportunity.
Basically,
and 1 and 2 is your complication.
You've got a couple blanks, then you've got 2 opportunity and 2 of
complications.
Our
hashtags are just going to be complications from now on.
Complications.
And everyone watching this video, you'll know what it means.
Yeah, you'll know. Complications and opportunity. There we go. So yeah, but there's ways if you don't have it and you want to play the beta rules, which are out now, by the way.
They are out
and
now.
they are also on Demiplane, the digital virtual rules and tabletop site.
Yeah. We've talked about it plenty.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. You can go to the Stormlight Nexus, which is really cool. They pass out these really cool cards. I think, Jeff, you got one with a different piece of art on it, actually.
I did. I have this one. Sorry, my camera does not have autofocus, though, but you can just imagine what it would look like. There we go.
Back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine has autofocus. But it just had info on the back that said, go to stormlightrpgnexus.com, create a free account, select characters, and build your Radiant. And you can absolutely do that. I was playing with it. I didn't get through it all. Jeff was playing with it. He got through it. We'll talk about
I created a character.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's out there. Go check it out. If you're going to go right now, pause the video, but come back.
Absolutely.
Or just watch the whole video and then go do it.
And then go do it. Absolutely.
But I was not expecting this. But they had there, live and in person, minis for the RPG already.
Oh man,
yeah. So I only got one box because they had a box for every book that's out so far. So I got the Way of Kings collection box right here. I'm going to show off the back of it because it's a little easier to see the characters. But it had Seth, it had Dalinar, had Eshonai, Kaladin, Syl, Shallan, and the Lopen, which I think is awesome.
The Lopen.
Had the Lopen. You have to say the Lopen.
Of course. No, it's the Lopen.
So, brother-wise, put the on there.
Yeah.
It's got to be the Lopen.
You'd be ashamed.
And then, if you were to get the other boxes, they do have some repeat characters, but they're it's them from those books. So like in this one, it's Kaladin, but he's got the kind of homemade armor that they make down in the chasms with the carapace armor. That's what it is. Also too, the Syl. Oh my gosh. The Syl mini is translucent. I'm going to show that one off because it's just so good. So kind of hard to see. Sorry. My autofocus again.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's the minis were great. They had some like slightly bigger figures as well that were already like painted or colored in some way. They looked really good. I thought about getting one just put behind me, and I probably should have, but I'm honestly kind of running out of space. So maybe we'll order one and clear off our area a little bit.
There's a carapace armor Kaladin, and his shield is just so cool looking. Eshonai, Dalinar, in his full shard plate glory.
Dude, so sick.
Man. So
see, my problem, I want to buy them, but no one that I know in real life or like in person has read the books, and so I don't. If there's one drawback for me on this system, is that I don't know that, at least at this point, that people who have not read the books, I don't know that they'll be nearly as excited. I do think they would enjoy the system, though. I think that the system would still be enjoyable, even if you don't know the lore. But I don't know if people would be as enticed to play it.
I agree. Like I said, it's at the same time, though, if you have people that are RPG fans in general, then it's going to be kind of just like any other campaign setting for them. Like they can get into it. They just have to like learn about it and get into it. I think the system will absolutely draw them in, though. So, and we'll talk more about the system in a minute.
Right, it's coming.
It's coming. the discussion is coming. But Thursday, like I said, we got in there, got to talk to Johnny. Shout out to Johnny. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you for showing everything to us and just conversing with us and answering some questions. And it was all awesome to meet you in person as well. So, but yeah, so that was the product acquiring day.
Yes.
But then, we went to Friday. We got super busy with some of the other things we were involved with there because we were both volunteering
We were
there at GenCon. But Saturday, we did go back. Actually, hold on. We were volunteering with Love Thy Nerd.
yes.
Because we are part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. If you don't know what Love Thy Nerd is, definitely check it out. We exist to love and serve our nerdy neighbors. And so that's what we were doing during Gen Con.
Yeah.
We went and we served with several publishing companies with demoing their games, and then at the end with their teardown. And so that was part of why we got to go, and it was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great.
And if you saw us there in that, please let us know in the comments or hit us up on social media or shoot us an email from the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. And so just it was amazing, but it did keep us busy. And so because of that, we didn't get to sign up for ahead of time the Stormlight RPG playtest.
Right.
Because we didn't get our badges until we actually arrived at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And so Thursday, Jeff definitely, not Thursday, on Saturday, we knew exactly what times they were going to have them. And so we went, we got some generic tickets for events there at Gen Con. And what was the time that we went first? Was it 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock. Because we ended our shift at 2, ate food, had a few minutes to kill, then ran over there at like 3:20, 3:30, it feels like.
It was about 3:30, I think. I think we went early, but it wasn't nearly early enough, because at 4, we got there and we asked, like, hey, we'd like to try to get in if there's any spots open. We have generic tickets. And they were like, well, okay, there's a line. And so there was already 3 people in line. So we were number 4 and 5. But we sat there for like 30 minutes and we talked with Ross, one of the writers and developers on the Stormlight RPG. You want to take a crack at Ross's last name?
I think it's Ross Leeser. Ross, if you watch this and I'm completely wrong, I apologize. And Phil, you are more than welcome to correct me. Yes.
But no, Ross was fantastic. We talked with him for while we waited. And
pretty much the time we waited.
And then, it came down to it. They're like, all right, we're going to see who can get in. And it came down to it, and they were like, we've got 3 spots open. And so we were, we missed the cut at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, we were number 4 and 5, so it got right up to us.
Yeah, and so thankfully, though, Ross was super cool about it. He was like, hey, we have another one at 8 o'clock. He said, be here earlier because we've been having people show up really early, and I'll remember you guys. Thankfully, we were wearing matching shirts, too, because
we were wearing matching shirts.
Volunteering. Yeah. And so we were like in these bright blue shirts, but we went.
Also gave him a sticker with our face on him. I feel like that helps some.
That's true. We were like, here, have a sticker. It'll help you remember our faces. No, very clever timing.
It was great.
But so we went back at like 7:05. We were like, we're going to be an hour early. And we showed up, and thankfully Ross was like, awesome, you're first. And so we were there, and so because we were an hour early, we talked to Ross almost that entire time. And,
truly, for like the entire hour.
He would stop and he would greet people as they came in, but it was like most of the people coming in at that time were, he's kind of directing them to where they needed to go. But thankfully, he was free enough that we were able to just chat with him,
ask questions, learn about the system.
Conversation.
Yeah,
just an awesome time.
Right.
Ross, mad props to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it came down to the 8:00 playtest, and people were starting to show up. We were getting a little worried, but Ross was like, "You know what, guys, I'm going to make it happen." And, it came down to it, and they were super generous and added us to, he was like, "I'm going to make sure you get in with me as well." And so he added us to his table, and we actually got to run it with 5 people, which was awesome. I don't think they'd been doing that the whole time, but I think it made our group even more fun because we had like 5 people. But yeah, we got to get into it. We were super excited. And again, massive shout out and thank you to Ross and Brotherwise for getting us in because, so good.
Oh, yeah, it was so good. And we're
going to go into details about our experience doing it.
We are.
But yeah. And then on top of that, we had Ruvaid. And Ruvaid, if I'm saying your name wrong, I apologize. We had Ruvaid, one of the writers, also sit down at our table. And I'm pretty sure was taking notes and observing us.
He was, absolutely.
While we were playing. And so,
I was trying to cheat off his work, but he kept hiding it, so I don't know what he wrote.
No. And then we got to talk with Ruvaid afterward, too. So shout out to Ruvaid. So awesome
absolutely.
To meet you. We got pictures with Ruvaid and with Ross as well, and we got let in on the exclusive hashtag of I love Moash. We know
it was. They had they had pins, but they didn't have any for us, which was a big disappointment.
I think they were like dev kind of exclusives, but no. Loved that. So that
was awesome. It was great
to hear about that. So So yeah, if you know, you know, and if you know, hashtag I love Moash.
We're actually gonna like go even further. We're gonna get some pins that say like Team Odium. Like that's just.
No, I don't think we're gonna do that.
No, we're not going that far. Okay, my bad.
No.
All right. Well.
Yes. Let's go ahead.
Let's dive into it. Yeah, and so everyone that skipped forward, welcome back. We are now going to dive into the actual look. And so we're going to be doing something a little bit unique to this season. We're actually going to have a metric that we're going to use to review all the games that we get to test play, and we're going to call it the critical system. And so we've actually made a acrostic for the word critical. We're going to look at foresee the character creation. We're going to look at role play opportunities, integration of lore, tabletop experience. So whether there's great VTTs or how you got to do that, right? In-game mechanics is our I. C is going to be the combat system. A, artwork and design. And L, how's the learning curve? How's it feel to learn? And so today we're going to be taking a critical look at the Stormlight RPG. All right, so the first C on our acrostic is character creation. Now, originally, I hadn't planned to go too far into this because we were given pre-generated characters.
Well, let's talk about those for a second first.
Okay, we'll talk about those. That's a good,
Because we had, again, we got to sit down at the table, and
we did.
This was just the hour-long combat demo, which honestly revealed so much about the game in such cool ways. And even just because we got a chance to talk with Ross ahead of time, I feel like sitting down, I already kind of knew what I was doing, even though he did a fantastic job of explaining a lot of it again. But the character sheets, they're very similar to what you would expect in an RPG character sheet.
Right.
It's not too far different if you've played D&D or Pathfinder or anything like that. You're going to be able to recognize the boxes and things like ability scores and stuff like that, but it does look a little bit different. We'll have some pictures up in the video of that as well. We had a lot of pictures, so we had to get them in. But we had, there's some unique things on it. What were some of the unique things that jumped out to you on that, Jeff?
Yeah, so I really thought it was interesting that things were split up into like physical, cognitive, and spiritual. And in those, you had like a defense as well. So, you had your physical defense, a cognitive. I don't have my character sheet in front of me, so I can't remember exactly what it says. But you had like those 3 areas. So you had a defense for each of those. But then you also had a point in those. So we had like focus points. We had what was it in cognitive? Was it focus in cognitive?
Yeah, focus. Was it in cognitive?
You have it in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what were the points called on each one? Because I remember you had points in each one.
So, under physical, you have your health.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But not just your health, and not just your defense or your AC, essentially. You also had. Hold on. Let me pull that picture back up.
We will also have images of these. Yes, I've officially pulled up one now. Okay. So yeah, what I was looking at is that, so in physical you have your health, in cognitive you have focus, and so you have focus points, and you can use focus points to do certain things. And then for someone like a radiant, you have something called investiture, and then investiture is your points, like your currency that you can use, and then you can use actions, because there's a multi-action system. We'll get into. You can use an action to breathe in Stormlight, and it refills all your investiture points. If a high storm comes over, right, it refills your investiture
too in certain ways. So but yeah, like I said, they do have. So it's interesting. They have, your defense, your AC, if you will, but then they have a deflect that is based off your armor. So they have that kind of armor mechanic that actually reduces the damage taken every time you take damage. And so I love that as a mechanic. It's something that I've played with in other systems like Star Wars Genesis and stuff, and which I appreciate that because even if you get hit with something heavy, sometimes it doesn't feel quite as bad when you're subtracting a couple of points off of it.
You get to take a few points off,
But then they also
that was nice.
But then they also have on the character sheet I think it's laid out very well in that you've got all of the strength and speed abilities in the same column as strength and speed and physical defense, as well as your health and deflect. It's all kind of laid out in a column. You'll see it in the picture. Then you've got the cognitive, you've got the intellect and willpower. All of those abilities are underneath it. And then awareness and presence are underneath the spiritual and have all the spiritual abilities. One thing that is cool, though, is that they do have some blank slots in there for the, not the ability score, but, pardon me, it's the, I guess it's still the abilities. What's a more specific term for those? Like athletics,
heavy, like your skills.
Skills, thank you. Skills.
Yeah, skills.
So the skills are underneath them, and so there's some blanks because depending on your heroic or radiant path, you will have different skills, and so it's there's some spaces for those. And I could see, and we did playtest at level 5, by the way, which was awesome.
Which was awesome.
It was awesome. It was a little overwhelming because we did have a lot of abilities, but at the same time, we got to...
Do you want to tell them what you played?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, I played, in the playtest, I played Velik, the singer, who was in a war form. They were a leader. So just so you know, it's... there was like singer, and I was in war form, which is pretty cool. And then I was a leader champion, which champion is the, it's not subclass, but it's kind of like a subclass. What is it called here? I'm also trying to look on the character creation stuff.
I was gonna say I was on the character creator. What is it under? Your expertise?
Expertise? Maybe.
Maybe not. Maybe not. There's her backstory.
But anyway, it's like
culture.
a class.
Culture.
And so you get you get to choose between 3 different ones in the character creation. But yeah, so then I was also a will shaper. So that was the radiant path that that I had, which was pretty cool. So, but yeah, and then also too, it's just like I said, laid out very well. The radiant abilities and even the heroic abilities were very cool. And so yeah, it's I thought they did a good job with the character sheet, and
and going into the part that I didn't think I would be able to talk about was actual character creation. But literally before we decided to hit the record button, in about a 5-minute period, I created a character on Demiplane. We're huge fans of Demiplane, and it's all laid out, and it is in a step by step process. And truly, you don't have to know anything about the lore to create a character. You click a little drop down; they'll tell you everything you need to know about the humans, about the listeners, right? So I in particular, I played a singer, nimble form, edge dancer. So I played a healer, but a very slippery movement based healer, which was really, really fun. But Demiplane, honestly, like the character creator is so easy. I mean, if you've ever used like D&D Beyond or anything,
in general, but man,
yeah, it's like it just takes you, step by step through it. I found the character creation really easy. I'm also like very impressed by the character sheet, like you were saying, like you have the physical, cognitive, spiritual, and so in that you also have like the attributes, but immediately below that you have the skills that are based on like your physical, and you have the skills based on your cognitive, the skills based on your spiritual. Like it's all lined up right there. It's just, I mean, as far as the character sheet goes, it's well done.
On the character sheet, when you flipped it over to the back, right? It does have a backside on the character sheet that has like your equipment. It has your spheres, your money. It has it has a continued section for your talents, and then it has things like your purpose, your obstacles, your goals as a character, which I love that it has all of that built in and as a mechanic, because I love RP. I love roleplay as an element of it. But yeah, so, which I didn't even notice until after I was looking at the pictures, but I had a Spren and it has a name.
Yeah. I noticed that. I noticed that too.
My Spren's name was Vibrato, my bonded light Spren. And so if you know what that is, that's great.
Yeah,
but no,
absolutely.
I thought that was cool. I had we were trying to, take in so much information so quickly. I totally missed that when we were sitting there, but also too, as a Radiant, like you get the ability to breathe Stormlight to restore your investiture. I mean, it's a mechanic just as you would expect it to be.
Which is impressive, because it's not like spell slots where you expend them and you're done. It's like, no, I breathe in, and maybe obviously you probably have a set amount of Stormlight you can breathe in, but you breathe it in. Probably. Yeah, you breathe it in, and then like you're restored. Now you can do your stuff again, which is really cool.
You are, so it's not spell slots, but you are limited with your investiture and your focus on your abilities. And so, especially for the non-Radiant hero paths, I think one of them had like 7 focus points, and so they could do a lot of different things with those focus points. And then as a Radiant, I had like 5 focus and 5 investiture.
Yeah, I had the same.
And then there's another thing too that was cool. It's like, like when you think of the world of Roshar, maybe you don't know that someone's a Radiant until they use an investiture or a surge or something, and then it's obvious. There's like mechanics built into it for that too. So lots of cool things. But I think the character creation system they have is already really, really good, and I'm excited to play more because we all have access. So
yeah, we do. So kind of going on to that, I think character creation, I think we both agree is very good. We haven't sat down and made one just with paper in the book, but I actually imagine it's going to be just as good because just clicking through the rule book, there was a step-by-step, character creation in the book too. I imagine it's going to be very good as well. So moving on, role play opportunity. What did you think about that, Seth? How did you feel about we didn't get to really role play because it was a combat encounter, but how do you feel about the role play experience in the game?
I mean, we had a few minor role play moments in our playtest. One, you and I were, because we've played together, I think it was easier for us to maybe chat back and forth to each other.
Yeah, I really tried to make him a bowling ball. I was an edge dancer, as a reminder.
Yes, we did have.
And he was the tank.
Ross loved it and said that was his favorite line, quote from any of the things so far. We didn't get to do it. I was prepared to do it, but then
I know.
I think I got two as the tank because my character was a tank. Yeah. I was like, I need to get over there and protect my friends, and
I'm like, let's throw the tank at the bad guy.
The one that's on the back. Even
the one he was way back there. It wouldn't have been
attacked by 3.
It wouldn't have been a great strategic move, but it would have been fun.
Yeah. Next time.
Next time.
But no, I think that. So as we mentioned in the dice, there is the plot die, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling it out, showing it off on the video again. The plot die is very similar to other narrative dice mechanics, like in the Genesis system, which is the one I'm most familiar with.
Right.
And I think they even mentioned that as being one of the inspirations for the plot die, because the plot die, and not just the plot die, but the mechanics of opportunity and
complication.
Complication. Why is it not conflict?
I don't know.
I'm just kidding. It's probably
so it's like I can't remember complication. You guys change it now.
An opportunity and a complication. I will get it when I'm not this tired.
When you're not tired, that's fair.
And after reading through the rules many times.
Many times, I know.
But yeah, so the
complication.
Yeah, complication and opportunity mechanic, like I said, very similar. And in our playtest, we were given those opportunities, and Ross as our GM was like, hey, do you want this opportunity to use the die and create a role play moment? Or one time he was even like, oh, this is what's happening. You need to use the die. But it all worked out great. It was really cool. And so I think there's going to be some really awesome role play opportunities in the system. And I think it'll be easier for newer players or players that don't know how to role play to take a cue from the dice. Right. Which is what I think, which is why I liked the Fantasy Flight narrative dice mechanics, because it assists in that, where as opposed to just maybe trying to make up a story about what's happening in the moment, which can be very hard for somebody. I mean, we had somebody at our table even who was like, he didn't necessarily want to try to role play a thing. And that was completely fine. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of it. The game definitely facilitates it. And so, looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you finish yours out, because I had two things that I wanted to say that I thought was really kind of role play focused as well. One of them is just the goals. Like when you're creating your character, there are goals that you create for yourself, right? Like I just have an example one pulled up here. Like one of them was, one goal is get promoted to sergeant. The other's like bond to spren. Kind of opens up things like that. Then Another thing I thought was cool is there's actually a mechanic. If you fire like a ranged weapon and you have a party member within 5 feet of where you're firing that ranged weapon, you roll the plot die. And on a complication, you graze, which is dice damage without the modifier. That's actually built in the game. Really cool mechanic, too. You graze your comrade and actually do damage. And I think like that's obviously like it's a negative, and sometimes you feel like just a jerk if your GM does it or whatever. But the fact that it's just built into the game, and it, I think things like that are open up opportunity moments because afterwards your tank's like, "What the heck, man? Why'd you hit me?" I think just fun stuff like that. But for roleplay, I think that I think it has plenty of opportunity for it. Again, we didn't really get to play it. We do. I meant to say this at the beginning. We do plan to get the full rules and do our own play test, and then do a more in-depth review. This is just our review of our GenCon experience of the game.
Absolutely. I feel like we got a pretty good preview of it, though.
I really think we did. I really think so too.
Yeah. And sorry, side note. I tried to refresh something on Demiplane just now as we're recording and referencing it, and it's like under maintenance now.
Yeah, I see that. Mine did the same thing. It says Creation Sprint Gather. Yeah. It says until 9 under maintenance till 9 a.m.
But I understand because they're launching the Kickstarter tomorrow.
The Kickstarter's launching, and so that's why. And that's why we're up right now at midnight doing this.
Right. What? Hold on. Just so that we can tell the fine people at home. Let's see.
Okay.
When is it going live? Do you know?
I do not know. Now Nexus is saying, Demiplane's saying 9 a.m.
I imagine that's what it was. Yeah.
I do not see. Yeah, I don't see the actual Kickstarter yet.
No, I've got the launching soon. I don't see a time on it, though.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Does it say on the cards we got? Let's see.
Oh.
It just says August 6th.
It's August 6th, so I'm betting morning. I'm betting around 9 a.m. is probably going to be it.
I'm going to look for it. Yeah. Okay.
So,
but yes, like I said, that's okay. But yeah, let's look at integration of lore. What did you think about, or what did they tell us about how it is going to integrate into lore?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the Stormlight archives, the world of Roshar, the lore there that's active in that, then you would be fangirling as you're looking at your character sheet. Because we were looking at our character sheet and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm a singer. Oh my gosh, I have a spren. I did notice I had a spren, by the way. Oh my gosh, I'm an edge dancer. Oh my gosh, I have a Brazian. Like, that's what, I get that. That's in the book. That's what Lift does. And just if we were sitting there flipping through the book itself and you're like seeing all this in the world of Roshar and you see it like coming to life, like I think this is what I am the most excited about is the integration of the lore. And one of the things I feel like they've done the best. Now, again, I haven't actually held it in my hand and spent hours reading through it, but what I've seen at Gen Con, I feel like they've done an amazing job at integrating the lore.
Well, and one thing that Ross told us is that through the whole process, they have made sure to ensure that the RPG and all of the lore elements within it are canon. And so it's, now obviously sitting down at your table, starting a game, you may take the story off in a way that's not canon.
Right.
But at least within what they're putting into it, all the things that are happening in the lore according to even the RPG book that will are probably going to be things that we don't have from the novels. We'll probably get little snippets of like canon things that have happened. So looking forward to that, and I do love that it integrates the lore that well. Tabletop experience.
Yes,
I thought it played at the table really well, especially because of, and again, we'll show it up on screen, the initiative system that we both were excited about, and how we
my
had
favorite
a
mechanic.
Card. We had a card for to take fast actions or slow actions, and basically what that did was that said, oh, if you want to take fast actions, then you get 2 action points for this round. if you're going to take slow actions, then you get 3 action points.
But you have to go after.
The order, there's no roll for initiative to see what order you go in. It's player fast actions, NPC or enemy fast actions, player slow actions, NPC enemy slow actions, right? And so that's always going to be the order. But we had a really cool card to flip over to say, oh, we want to do fast actions, we want to do slow actions. And then, of course, as any good GM, Ross was like, who wants to... there's the ability to change it. So even after a couple of us who took fast actions were finished, before we moved to the next, to the enemy fast actions, we had opportunity to just change it. And we did have somebody change it one time, which was cool. Yeah. So, but at the table, having that card to flip over and say one or the other was awesome. Yeah. I assume and I imagine that all the virtual tabletops that will have it will have to have that built in.
Yeah, something like that built in. Yeah, and the initiative, we're going to kind of get into mechanics and stuff in just a moment as well, but like the initiative was, I think, my favorite mechanic, and I don't know why. Like, I just felt like that was such a creative idea, but it gave players the agency to play how their player would play. Like, I often play clerics. I mean, I was playing an edge dancer, and I often play like the healer. And usually I want to go at the end because I want to see if I need to heal anyone. And so it gave me that opportunity to be the slow character and get the extra action. And so now I can use my edge dancing, like abrasion, to skate over to someone and hit them with healing and then smack a bad guy with my mace, right? Like, it was just cool stuff like that. The tabletop experience, I can't say how the VTT is going to be just yet. I have really, really high hopes. I will say at the table, they had, a pretty simple setup with small, the small little round tokens, which was really cool. I need to get some of those just for extra stuff, but they're little round tokens with printouts kind of put in them. And he had just a basic map there. We were actually fighting in a cavern. It played very well. And of course, the DM did an excellent job. Ross killed it at what he was doing. You could see his excitement about it. As for VTT experience, we don't know yet. That'll be in our next review. Yeah,
absolutely. But the tabletop experience was great. Again, Ross, he absolutely killed it. We had, down in a chasm fighting some bad guys, and we even had like map, environmental effects. We had a storm blow in, which actually has mechanics and does things.
Isn't that cool?
Which is just awesome. Oh. So, as in getting into our mechanics, getting into our eye of mechanics, how well did you think, with the mechanics that the gameplay experience flowed?
So I will say I was very impressed, and I don't know if it was because everyone at the table was, somewhat experienced with, D&D or Pathfinder or something, but I felt like Ross explained everything in a 10-minute period. We spent 5 minutes reading our character sheets, and then we had a genuinely solid flow of combat. Like, I just don't really see that in other games. And again, there a lot of things went in that. Very experienced DM, relatively experienced table of players, but like when combat hit,
and all fans, like
and all fans of right
but fans of the books, so that was also helpful.
It was very. But I feel like the action system was very easy to understand. I mean, your character sheet lists exactly what takes one action, what takes two actions, what if you have to do something, if something's like a requirement to be able to do something else, like with radiant powers, a lot of times you'd have to do something and that would give you access to these other powers. And so I thought all the mechanics were really laid out. Again, my favorite was that initiative system. It just hit me in the right way. I don't know why.
Let me ask you this, first impression, how does that action point system compare to Pathfinder or even DC 20?
So I will say I got to play test Pathfinder, but it was one, and there's no action point system in one. I was so disappointed. Okay. Yeah. So I can't say exactly, but I mean, I would say it felt very similar. I think I really love action points. One of my favorite mechanics now. and that's just because it gives your character a little bit more to do. And yeah, I even like that for like my character. There's a benefit to movement. I got advantage if I move 10 feet before I hit someone and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, action points, they felt similar. I liked that you kind of got to choose how many action points. Like there was the benefit of going first with your fast turn, but there's the benefit of more action with your slow.
That helped it flow a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also think that,
and it changes every round. I don't know if we said that. You can
every round of
change
combat. You can change between fast and slow, but
Yeah.
you can even change. You know, you could change to a fast earlier if you had decided you want to do slow. So,
Yeah.
But no, so like I have played Pathfinder 2 and I've played DC-20. To me, this was the most elegant action point system of the three for sure.
Okay.
I think Pathfinder's the crunchiest.
Right.
And then, you know, DC-20 definitely, you know, it's not even out yet. It's still in beta itself.
Right.
But
we haven't really seen the newer. I haven't seen the newer iterations of it either.
But I think that
So it's hard to say.
just in that playtest of Stormlight, I think it was implemented very well as well. So
Yeah.
what are some other mechanics we had that you were excited about?
I'm trying to think what. Let me see. So, okay, one thing I really liked is you roll all of your dice at the exact same time.
Yes.
So you roll your hit die, your damage dice, and if you're rolling the plot die, you roll your plot die all at the same time. And so if you get advantage, you get to choose which dice you roll two of. On the other hand, if you get disadvantage, or more. But on the other hand, if you get disadvantage, the DM decides what die you roll two of. And Ross really liked to make you roll two of those plot die because he really liked to give you complications.
And as part of that too, one of the major differences with this is that advantage and disadvantage stacks.
Yeah, definitely stacks.
So it could definitely make for a really cool moment. Or a really bad moment.
Right.
But
very
I
true.
mean, you know, I think that's fine. I think that's
Yeah, and I will say, like, even in like the Radiant side of things, there was like a, you know, this probably fits a little bit into lore and mechanics because there was like a regeneration. Like at the start of your turn, you can use an action to regenerate some health, right? Like you can, and that's sort of something from the lore of the game is that they regenerate. Like Radiants can regenerate, and on the other hand, like your non-Radiants have a similar, you know, power. I don't know. I don't think it's like regeneration. I don't know if it's like a healing one, but it's something that Radiants don't get. I don't know. We realized afterwards one of us should probably have played a non-Radiant, but we both really wanted to play Radiants.
We'll show pictures of the character sheet for
all
the ones that we were able to get a picture of. We were able to get a picture of all of our party members except for one. So we did get pictures of the non-Radiant, who was a scholar Artifabrian. And man, that Artifabrian was pretty much just like a railgun. It was a lot of damage and stuff.
It could put out some damage.
But yeah, also too, they did give us this sheet that was like, a list of actions and outcomes. And again, I think it was a little more refined than what we've seen with DC-20 or Pathfinder. And Pathfinder 2 has been out for a long time. So I don't know. I think it was a little easier to understand as well. I think a lot of times when people hear that there's action points, it's like, oh, it might turn them off. But if you're interested in this at all, obviously you got to give it a chance. But I think that it worked really well. I think that it was not a hindrance, and it didn't add the crunch that those other games do and can sometimes.
Yeah, I thought it was, and the cool thing is like and this may be a thing in Pathfinder and DC-20 as well, but like sometimes an action would cost like 2 action points, and like breathing Stormlight and such. Like it's powerful, but it's going to cost you. So yeah, kind of moving off mechanics, the combat system itself, which this is what we got to kind of test play the most. because it was essentially a 1 hour combat encounter. So Seth, what did you think about the combat? What do you think? Strategic, fast paced, casual?
Yeah, so I think honestly the combat system worked really well, even with having to make decisions for action points. I felt like the tone was set by the fast action, slow action cards. And so, it's like, oh, I'm choosing to do fast actions. I need to get these actions out fast. And maybe that's trick of the mind a little bit.
Trick of the mind, yeah. You're like, I need to move like my character.
I felt that it had a flow because you're like, okay, you picked fast, you picked fast, you picked slow, you picked slow. All right, well, fast. It's the fast player's turn right now, and then between fast action for the players and slow action for the players, there's NPC actions. So it gives the slow actions time to react. Also, some of the reactions were amazing too.
Reactions are great.
There were way more reactions in this small playtest for Stormlight than I feel like there is in all of D&D 5e.
Oh, yeah. I will say, in this game, you will need that action sheet next to you. I think pretty much new and experienced players will need that action sheet beside them at all times. Because there's...
To begin with, until you get
there's a lot. I'm going to have it on the screen. You'll see it. But it's like, there's a lot that you can do. And to me, that's awesome. Now, if you don't want to mess with any of that stuff, you can move and attack. But there's a lot of different kind of actions that you can take. And reactions, and sprint actions for that matter.
But it does use your standard 5-foot square map.
Yeah.
It is geared for tactical, strategic map combat. I think with the ability to role play with the plot die, I think you could just as easily do theater of the mind. I don't think that it would be hard to do that. But I feel like, pardon me, I feel like the combat though was nice and tight. It was not. It didn't seem to drag on. Again, I felt like we were lucky that we had a really good group.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about combat, and I think something we should look at whenever on our other playtests too, is like the enemies. Like, what are the enemy mechanics like? Yeah. And I mean, in Stormlight, in just now the limited playtest, there's only 3 different characters. Now, 2 of the was it Warform that we were fighting?
So we had 2 of the listeners.
Listeners, yeah. I can't remember what form he said they were in.
Listeners were that we were fighting against were a bonded pair. One was a Warforged form, and one was a
Nimble form, I think.
Form as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a bonded pair, and what was awesome was that they, as a reaction, when one moved, the bonded pair could basically move with them.
Yeah.
And so, again, there were some really cool, unique reaction abilities. Depends on the player or the NPC for those reactions. And there was also a great list. There were some great free action options. So yeah, it's
absolutely,
it's really cool. So, let's move on to artwork and design.
Yeah, artwork and the design.
We could definitely talk about combat the whole time.
Oh yeah, we could. We had the same thought.
So the artwork and design. Okay, the artwork is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Again, if you have a chance to get the Chasm Fiend magazine, there is some amazing art in it.
Now, I don't know what this style would be called, but it's very, to me, reminiscent of D&D Pathfinder style artwork.
It's just color illustrations, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so we have in this book, we have some from Steve Prescott, who's done a lot of art. I know there's a person who is a fan, fan of the community, even who, has had the opportunity to contribute to it as well, and they are just doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But there's like the art is just so good.
Yeah, it is very good.
I mean,
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's really a standard style. Like you have some games have like a noir style. You have some games have kind of a grungy, bloody feel. Like this, just to me, is a very stereotypical fantasy style art, and I really like that kind of art. So yeah, I mean, and whereas I'm not really the dark, all black, grungy noir style. That's not really my type. Yeah, that is the giant picture that was there that I literally just read about that scene. That was the giant, 20-foot wide poster or whatever it was, that was there. It's pretty amazing.
If you know about Dalinar holding a ruby, then you know.
Okay. Artwork, great. Yeah. Design, we kind of already hit the character sheet and what all we can see.
The character design, or the design so far that we've seen, the layout in the book. And again, this will be a good place, I think, Jeff, to show off some of the handbook. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the Stormlight handbook, the preview that we got to see had some really amazing layout and design, showing us the progression of characters going down a path, what they may look like. Especially like what a radiant might look like, going from, saying the ideals to, going all the way up to the top in full shard plate and shard blade. So, also, like we didn't really talk about the mechanics on it, but the paths, getting a look at the heroic and the radiant paths and how they work, because Stormlight does have levels, but you can kind of go in a lot of different directions with the paths, and so it's almost like the talent trees from other games that you can go into in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of variety that you can go into it from. Right.
Yeah. And like one of the things they talked about is you stay powerful as well. It's not like, you're in D&D and you're one class, then you multi-class, so you turn into a level 1 wizard or whatever. It's like in Stormlight, if you're going this way, it's like it's built for you to adjust your course as you're going. And so you just stay at a power level even as you start picking up different traits and skills and things along your path. I'm really, really intrigued to see that, like the character development that comes through that.
A lot like, we as people, if you have gone through a whole bunch of experience and then you shift your focus, doesn't mean that you don't have that experience anymore. So, yeah, they did a really good job with that.
Yeah,
of showing,
absolutely.
Like Kaladin, for example, would be a scholar surgeon, but also a windrunner.
Yeah.
So
you can see his path as it winds and goes. Yeah,
you can see how he has all this experience in being a surgeon, but how he's also like a warrior and a windrunner. So
right.
Another thing too they mentioned that we hadn't really talked about is that they worked really hard to make sure that ranged weapons and abilities were not too overpowered.
Right.
In a game where you will have a lot of flying characters.
Yes.
Potentially. Because, a lot of the Radiants can fly. And so
if you can imagine having a longbow with flying. Yeah.
Yeah. So they worked really hard, and kind of what it comes down to is if you're not standing on
stable-footed is what they call it.
Yeah. Then you're going to be at disadvantage when you're firing a bow or ranged weapon while you're flying or something. So, but yeah, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with that. So, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and move to our last section. The learning curve. Obviously, we're veterans,
right?
But how easy
would this be?
You could objectively rank how easy it was to learn in the hour that we had.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really hard. Like, it's the curse of knowledge, right? It's really hard to unknow what you know. So for me, it was very easy to pick up, but it's so similar to other mechanics or other systems that I've played. Like, I don't think this would be any more difficult to learn than 5e, right? For instance, I mean, yeah, I think it would be on par with learning 5e. I think it'd be easier than learning Pathfinder. That's kind of where I'm at. What are your thoughts on it? You've taught a lot of people how to play D&D, so I feel like you know a little better.
Yeah, and others as well. So probably more systems than you have over the years.
Right.
And I think that if you have any TTRPG experience at all, it will be pretty easy to pick up the basics.
So imagine...
I think if you have 5e experience, if you have 5e experience or a narrative dice experience similar to the Star Wars Genesis system, then I think either of those will also lend to you being able to pick it up very easily. I'm not, there are more narrative systems than just that. That's what I'm most familiar with. But I think if you were to come from either one of those, you would have a pretty good understanding of how to play this game. So
what do you think if you have a player who has only read the books and has never played a TTRPG in their life? What do you think?
I think they'll still have a very easy time of it because you'll understand the world in a way that is easy to understand the rules. I think the rules, because they were designed with that, let's keep it canon, let's keep it true to the world, let's keep it true to the class and to how it feels to be a Windrunner, or how it feels to be an Artifabrian, kind of thing. I think that it could absolutely be picked up by someone who is a fan of the books but has never really played an RPG. I think that would not be hard at all, because you're already a leg up and being like, oh, I know what a Radiant is, I know what a Surge is, I know what Investiture means, I know what Stormlight means.
Right.
I think it's not going to be that hard, because a lot of the mechanics are very much connected to what we get from the books. Breathing in Stormlight, what does that do? If you've read the books, you know what that does.
Right.
And so you know what it's supposed to do. And so when the mechanic of it in the game is going to be very similar to what it's supposed to do. It's going to refresh you. It's going to bring back your investiture points.
Right.
Easy to understand, I feel like, in my opinion. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I think the learning curve will be it'll be a fairly short ramp to onboard onto the Stormlight RPG. Again, it's a 7 polyhedral dice set.
Right.
The plot die is the only one that's truly different.
Right.
Although the D20 does have, complication and opportunity.
Sure.
On the D20, but I don't think that it is going to be a hindrance. I think it's going to be pretty easy to pick up.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
And then a lot of fun to master. So
yeah, I agree. I'm honestly looking forward to getting the actual book in my hands and running this. I think I've already told Seth that he's going to have to run one online for us.
100%.
So yeah, because no one I know in person has read the books.
Campaign,
not yet, anyway.
And at least in a short, maybe a few sessions.
I believe what I'd seen before Demiplane quit letting me read all the fun stuff is that that Bridge 9 starter adventure is there. So we have to run the Bridge 9 adventure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was the Bridge 9 or if it was something else, but
it said Bridge something. I assumed it was the same one that was at GenCon. That's the playtest we did not get into.
So one of the things that we learned from looking at the Stormlight Nexus, the beta rules preview is going to be, it's going to have a bunch of stuff from the Stormlight handbook. And then it's going to have some condensed portions of the Stormlight World Guide and the Stonewalker's Adventure, which is a level 1 through level 6 adventure, and it goes across the whole continent of Roshar. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure those are going to be the main 3 books we're going to get in the Kickstarter.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Gonna be awesome,
but I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So, awesome. If you're watching this later on and you've already seen what's in the Kickstarter, come back to the comments and let us know if Seth is right or wrong.
Tell
okay.
us if I was right or wrong.
Yeah.
And also tell us what you're most excited about the Stormlight RPG. Okay. Well.
Yeah. I mean, as we wrap up, I think we should do our outro just a little bit different as far as what we've been playing. Why don't we tell them what we played at GenCon? And because I played 2 games that were kind of exciting.
Well, so I kind of don't want to go into anything else besides Stormlight with this one.
Okay. All right.
Because we're going to record a true GenCon episode within the next 5 to 10 days. So we'll go into that. But what I will say is let's tell the people what we played. Tell us a little bit more about your character that you played.
Yeah, so in Stormlight, I played, I think her name was Verdict. And she was a singer, edge dancer. I cannot remember her path exactly, but she did have a sprint. I played her as a previous. I think she was a soldier, edge dancer, and I played her kind of as the healing type. She was definitely going at the end, looking for opportunities to heal, opportunities to help, and really my goal was to try to use all the fun mechanics before the playtest was over. And so I got to use her skate ability, which is where she can basically slide across the ground. I got to use a abrasive where I could make anything slippery, and I made an enemy drop the spear and couldn't pick it back up. I used her regrowth where she can grow up vines and things to create a barrier between her and the bad guy who really did not care for her in particular. And so, I got to use all the fun stuff, which I was excited. That was my goal, was 1, to beat the bad guys, and 2, to use all the fun stuff for the combat before the hour was over.
Oh, for sure. And like I said, I played. We were singer buddies.
We were singers.
And so, like I said, I was Velik. I was a singer warform leader champion, will shaper, and I was basically the primary tank of the group. I had a higher health and a higher deflect because I actually had a shield as well as 2 axes. But what was awesome too was that I pretty much had a almost like a bardic inspiration ability, one called Decisive Command, and I could spend a focus, grant an ally within 20 feet a D4, and what was awesome is that they could actually, because we roll everything at once, they could roll all their dice, including that D4 that I gave them, and then they could choose whether they want to add it to their D20 or to their damage, essentially. Right. So I think there's some really cool elements to the combat in the rolling everything together. Yeah, it also saves you time.
It saves time.
But so I think there's some really cool mechanics with that. I also had a reaction as a level 5 that if when I'm targeted by an attack, I can force a character to only attack me, kind of things, or I could intervene as well. And then there's just some really cool stuff there. But we did have also with us, and this is a special shout out to our 2 other teammates that I have their names. One of them checked out pretty fast, and I didn't catch catch their info, but we did have 2 players that were sticking around, and they chatted with us, and they were super cool and excited about it as well. We had David, who played a human windrunner who was a soldier duelist. And then we had Jacqueline, who was a human spy artifabrian. And so they both were super cool. They were super into it and excited. And were doing all the things too. We were all kind of like just exploring our character sheets.
Yes.
And Jacqueline was pumping out the damage with her artifabrian, with her fabrial device. And it was just so much fun. But yeah, so shout out to the 2 of you. If you hear this, please comment and tell it. In fact, I know David has already followed the channel.
Oh, nice.
And on
Love
Twitter, and at least on Twitter, on X, has followed us there, because I've already messaged him back. But
nice.
But yeah, definitely let us know anything else that you wanted to, that you were like, oh, don't forget about this, and we'll mention it in another episode. But it was a pleasure to play with you, Ross. It was also a pleasure to play with you, and just again, thank you so much for allowing us to get into this game preview at GenCon. There was so much going on at GenCon, but this was one thing that we were very thankful to have had the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can safely say, Jeff, that we're going to back this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier I had an 11-hour drive today to get home. Yeah, I started Way of Kings over again. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I am in Dawnshard right now.
Perfect.
And I had a passenger, so I didn't listen as much, but
okay.
We had some good conversations.
Well, once again, thank you all for joining us today. Please let us know how excited you are for the Stormlight RPG. Hit us up on Twitter at the RPG Rundown. Hit us up on Instagram. It's RPG Rundown without the THE at the beginning on Instagram. But then on TikTok, it's the RPG Rundown once again. And then be sure to check out the YouTube. We actually have a new location on YouTube.
We do.
Because previously we were published under the LTN YouTube channel. And since last season, we have basically been given our own brand channel under the LTN channel. And so we have a new one. What is it called, Jeff?
It is the RPG Rundown LTN.
Was that a question, or are you sure about that?
That was a statement that I made with a slight question at the end.
Okay. We'll have a link in the show notes for it.
It will be in the show notes.
But yes, thank you again. Thank you, Brandon, for just an incredible world to read about, but also to play in. And yeah, we're super excited for the Kickstarter to kick off in, less than probably 12 hours at this point, maybe 24. Yeah. So
very, very soon.
Awesome. Well, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I was just gonna add. I don't know if anyone noticed my shirt I was wearing. I just wanted to show this if anyone's still here and watching. If those were available, if anyone would be interested in those, just drop a comment and let us know.
Absolutely. We also had some awesome stickers at GenCon.
We had great stickers at GenCon. Yeah.
And so we're working on swag. So
yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Well, like you said, also love. Again, we are partnered with Love Thy Nerd. They are a faith-based organization geared at loving and serving our nerdy neighbors. And like I said, that's what we were doing at GenCon, but they go to lots of cons to do that. And they work with publishers and game developers of all kinds to, just share the love of Christ with them. So just through service. It's not even something that we always have to have a conversation about. We want to be there and be a light. So you can definitely check them out. Love Thy Nerd. We are part of their podcast network, and we have a new brand channel this year. And so be sure to check it out. Give it a subscription. We will also be posting our actual plays on there as well. So we're just going to.
So it's all together.
All together now.
The rap channel is no more.
The rap channel is going to be shuttered, but that's okay.
That's all right.
But yeah, definitely check us out. And there's so many things that the LTN does as well. They do all sorts of nerd culture. They do, wrestling to board games to comic books to movies. They talk about all those things in different avenues. So be sure to check them out as well. All right. I think we're at an end. Anything else, Jeff?
Yeah. No, I think that's it. I can confirm now the YouTube channel is youtube.com/@the-RPG-rundown-LTN.
Perfect.
That is it.
Be sure to check us out there. Once again, for everyone that we met at GenCon, thank you so much for the great conversations. Thank you for checking out the channel. We had you did get to meet one of your favorite YouTubers, the Dungeon Coach.
I met the Dungeon Coach, and I was
jealous because it was
very excited.
Like on a break, and we weren't hanging out. So.
Yeah, no, I was on shift. I just ran out for a couple minutes, and yeah, there he was. It was awesome.
Awesome. So very cool. We're definitely going to do some more reviews on that as that game continues in its development as well. But look for our next episode, hopefully coming very soon, and it's going to be our full Gen Con wrap episode.
Yes.
Because we did a lot. So.
Oh, we're doing rap again. Okay.
Well, not that kind of rap.
No. Oh, my bad. All right.
But anyway, once again, thank you, and from our table to yours, thanks for joining us on the RPG Rundown.
Until next time, may your rolls be epic and your stories legendary.
Welcome to the RPG Rundown. I'm Seth.
And I'm Jeff. From Dungeons to Deep Space, we've got the systems and the stories for your table. Today on episode 10, we're reviewing the Daggerheart beta. Now, both Seth and I have had a chance to play the Darrington Press and Critical Role TTRPG that was released for open beta on March 12th. Today, we're going to talk about all of our experiences, the beta documents, our playtests, our thoughts, maybe some of our concerns. So we'll be deep diving kind of into those today. I'm pretty excited. This has been a really fun system. I've been pumped about it. It was fun to DM. Seth's had a chance to DM it and play it. So yeah, you ready for this?
Absolutely. So we're just going to dive right into it. We're starting off kind of with what we have played, which is usually, if you're familiar, at the end of our episodes. But because pretty much all we've played is Daggerheart, at least for me, in the last few weeks. So that's what we're going to dive into. So I will mention briefly for any of you who are like, wait a second, weren't they supposed to play Avatar Legends? The answer is yes. We did attempt a play session for it. However, we ran into a few issues, so we're going to give it a second attempt later. So, a lot more to say about that then.
Sure.
But for now, we're diving into Daggerheart because
well, it just drops.
It dropped.
You had to.
Absolutely. So like Jeff mentioned, it dropped on March 12th, which happened to be a Tuesday night, which is my personal campaign's normal streaming and recording evening. We had a couple players who had some real life stuff come up and they weren't going to be able to play. So I just proposed it early that day. Hey, maybe we should try Daggerheart. And they all were like, yeah, let's give it a go. So, my personal campaign is Hearth and Hammer. Some of you may be familiar with it. If not, you can definitely check it out. It is on Twitch. We stream on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central from about 8 to 10 p.m. And it's twitch.tv/Hearth and Hammer. We also have a YouTube channel. I am so far behind on uploading stuff to that, but I'm going to make sure to put the Daggerheart VOD on there because it'll disappear from Twitch pretty quick. So that's going to be up there. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I normally have 5 players. I had 3 that created characters, and we started going through the Daggerheart playtest material. So it was a lot of fun GMing it. We're going to get into the full discussion of this shortly. Mm-hmm. But Jeff, I'm pretty sure you have had a similar experience. GMing this quick start and beta was phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just phenomenal, but it was one of the best onboarding to a new TTRPG experiences I've ever had.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So and we'll get into that, but yeah, go ahead and let us know your first take on it.
Sure. So you actually mentioned it to me on Tuesday that you guys were going to play it, and you invited me to play. I was unfortunately not able to make it to play, but I pitched it to my guys, to my D&D crew. Now we're in the middle of a campaign and actually leading up to some pretty big stuff. But I'm like, hey, Daggerheart dropped. You guys check this out, and I sent them a couple of videos. And within an hour, like several of them had responded. They were super excited about it. And one of my guys actually got on, and within like a day, he'd created like 6 characters on Demiplane, and didn't even know which one he wanted to play. And so I was like, guys, how do you feel about on Friday night, rather than running our normal campaign, why don't we try to test play Daggerheart? And so we invited Seth to join us. He jumped in there with us, and we got to test play it on Friday night, which is my normal stream D&D session. We stream later nights, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Central Time.
So late.
Twitch, so late. It is late. And it's catching up to me. I'm getting to that age where I'm starting to feel a little bit too. But 11 p.m. 2 a.m. at twitch.tv/Dr. Hills if you ever want to come in and watch that. But yeah, no, I mean, I'd watched a bunch of videos. I'd read a lot of the rule book. Which is awesome. Everything is on, you can get the PDFs and stuff directly from the Daggerheart website, but then everything else is on Demiplane as well, so that worked out really well. The starter adventure is like every starter adventure should be, I feel like, because it's like, it leads you through step by step. It's really, I don't know, to me it's like the perfect way to teach a TTRPG. Like there's, it literally sets you up, and even for the GM, it has steps like, okay, if they roll with hope, then do this. If they succeed with fear, then do that. I don't know. It's a great intro adventure. I agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. And I know both of us proposed to our players, we should do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
For me, and you'll remember this because, again, if you know Jeff and I introduced Jeff to D&D. And TTRPGs. I had the great pleasure and privilege to do so.
Absolutely.
And he actually played in my Hearth and Hammer campaign for a year and a half, I think.
Year and a half? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, year and a half. And so then he broke off, and he, again, proud papa moment. He went and he started his own D&D campaign. No,
I did.
No, it was fantastic. I'm so glad. And it's also fun to have a GM that we can talk about things now outside of it. So, but I said, you know what? We had this thing for our first campaign where on any day that we didn't have everyone together, we ran Hearth and Hammer Adventures, which was we created all new characters, and we basically just started in another part of the world, and we basically just had kind of a secondary campaign for fun that we ran. So I have proposed to do that with Daggerheart once we, either get through the quick start because we didn't finish it. But, to sum up, my players enjoyed it. They liked the idea. So, and I think I know you had mentioned something because I was there about trying to continue on at least for a few sessions, maybe not immediately, but I know you were pretty excited too.
Right. Yeah. Even our Discord chat has kind of everybody's been talking about how much they enjoyed it and stuff. So I think this week we're definitely planning to just continue working our way through the quick start adventure. And then once we get to the end, we'll go from there.
All right. Perfect. Well, hey, I will plan to be there barring any unforeseen circumstances. So
absolutely. That is the big bad of TTRPGs.
That's right. Scheduling.
Real life.
And unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's get into our presentation because I already have some stuff pulled up to show off. First, the Daggerheart website. It is daggerheart.com, like you might expect. And again, Daggerheart is a TTRPG that has been written and developed and is continuing to be written and developed by Darrington Press, which is the publishing arm of Critical Role. Critical Role has, I think this is a culmination of all of the things that they love to do, and this is very much how and what they want to do when they play the game. Mm-hmm. But they released the open beta, and so the website is live. I know Jeff mentioned earlier, Demiplane has a Nexus site for Daggerheart with a character creator and all the resources for free. Fantastic character creator.
Absolutely.
I only have a couple small complaints, and we'll address that here in a little bit. But it's beta. It's beta.
It is beta.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to go real quick, and I'm just going to read what's actually in the beta playtest packet. First, because if you're looking at the screen on the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel, there are two buttons. One says playtest surveys and play Daggerheart, and so you can download the playtest material there, and then you can also. It should be noted,
all this is free too.
All this is completely free.
Completely free,
which is really impressive considering the core rules, which they call the manuscript or something like that. It is 377 pages as a beta PDF. It's phenomenal, and it's not tons of pictures. There's a good amount of sketches and concept art, but there is not a lot. It is mostly everything you need to play the game, which is fantastic. And if you look at the table of contents, it has let's see. I'll just pull it up right now so we can look at it. Daggerheart open beta playtest. They've got a lot of things in here for saying that it's still an active game development, that balancing adversaries is not quite there yet. It's exploratory. Art is all subject to change. New updates periodically to the beta playtest cycle. Even though we are in beta, you can stream your games. You can make DP. You can even make DPGL, which is Darrington Press game license. I think is what it stands for, or maybe I think that's what it is. And basically, it's their version of the OGL. They're gonna release this for content creators, which is fantastic. And then also too, they talk about touchstones, which are the games that inspired them to add little tidbits here and there of the rules. And we're going to go over that here in a minute. But 377-page manuscript or core rules, a 40-page quick start adventure, which is honestly a fully scripted learn-to-play experience and onboarding for both the GM and the players. It's fantastic. We'll go over that in a minute.
Say when you said, the 377-page book, honestly, I think you could pick up the quick start play test and learn to play the game from it. Honestly, the GM.
100%.
You could pick that up, like read the stuff it tells you to read to your players. It's going to also teach you how the systems work and play through it just like it tells you to, and you'll learn to play the game. It's like the tutorial in a video game, honestly.
Absolutely, 100% agree. The playtest is phenomenal, and we're going to go over that here shortly. So, um, also the character sheets are not just character sheets; they're character packets. Okay, and I say that because it's a PDF. So, all in PDF form, these character packets are like 10 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Each character class has a packet, and
Right.
each class
Unique
has
character
a
sheet.
specific character. It's unique. So the character sheets are all the same except for one box, and that one box is what makes it unique. Just has your class abilities in it already, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But then the rest of that 10-page document is literally a guide to create a character with that class. It's got suggested stats, suggested starting equipment, everything to create the character. It even has like the beginning equipment stuff. It has all of the cards because Daggerheart has cards we're going to talk about soon. And it also has all the instructions to level up characters from levels 1 to 10,
Right.
which is fantastic. So, and then as part of that, like I mentioned, in those class packets, as well as in all the other materials, they have basically provided you all the things you need to print and play in person. Character tokens, the cards, action tracker, things like that. They have it in the PDF with cut lines and fold lines for you to print and to play. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, let's talk about what Daggerheart actually is. Like, what does it do? Jeff, talk about the duality dice, hope and fear tokens, and the action tracker, if you would, please.
Sure. So in Daggerheart, it is not necessarily a D20 system, at least for the players. So that was interesting to me. You actually have the players will use a duality dice. Those are two D12s. One will represent hope, one will represent fear. And so you roll your dice, and there's still a threshold that you must beat that's probably set by the GM. And you'll roll those. Now, if you beat that, then you'll succeed, obviously, but you can succeed with either hope or with fear. If you succeed with hope, then you get to take a hope token or fill a hope, and you get to use that hope for different things as you play the game. Now, on the flip side, if you succeed with fear or fail with fear, for that matter, the GM gets to take a fear. And all I had for fear tokens when I played mine was like literally nuts and bolts. So that's what I was using for my fear token. So every time I'd get one, you'd hear like in the mic, right?
Nice.
Just
Actually,
dramatic effect.
we didn't hear it. It cut it out. So.
Oh, it cut it out. Never mind. Well, in my head, you could hear it, and it sounded amazing. But yeah, so then the GM gets fear tokens, and you can use those as the GM. You can use fear for different things. Like you can use them in combat, you can use them out of combat. A lot of times, your monsters or NPCs that you're running they'll have special things that you have to use fear for, like special abilities. Rather than spell slots, you're burning fear tokens and things like that. And then same thing kind of on the other side. As the players, you're using hope to do all your abilities and things like that. I didn't play much of the player side, so Seth did get a chance to play the player side, so he'll know more about the hope. But yeah, so the duality dice, and they're always giving or taking, right? And then the action tracker, which almost works in a similar way. So whenever combat happens, there's not an initiative order. It is a kind of the natural order of play. Like whoever is in position to make an attack or make a move, they go ahead and do it. And whenever you want to make a action roll, you actually have to place a token on the action tracker. Now, basically, you just keep doing that player after player after player until one of you either fails a roll or rolls with fear. And at that point, it shifts to the GM to make what's called a GM move. Now, all of those tokens they put on the action tracker, I now get to use to make moves against the party. So, did they have 4 successful action rolls? Now I get four options to use my tokens to do different things with. So, I don't know. I personally love that system. I've only really got to run like the combat once and stuff, but so far it felt really fluid and really neat because sometimes the players will go on a run and they get a lot of successes, but then they also know eventually that's going to flip, and then the GM gets to make several moves. So what were your thoughts on it?
Absolutely. And two, one of the things we didn't quite get to is that if you have fear tokens, you can always interject by spending fear tokens.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's 2 fear tokens to interrupt the player moves. Yeah.
And all of these costs are listed very clearly in the rules. They are as appropriate to the quick start guide. They are listed where appropriate. If you're looking at the screen, this is another one of those tools. So these are some of the tools in the PDFs that come with it as well. And these are just within the rules, within the quick start. But you do get sideboards, which are actually in the character sheets. And they basically, it's a piece of paper that you can stick underneath the right or the left of your character sheet. And it explains, you overlap them. And it explains what you have on there. In fact, I can show you what it looks like.
And while you're pulling that up, that is probably one of my favorite things about the game so far is it seems like they've went way out of their way to introduce new people to the game. I mean, I know Seth's taught plenty of people the game. He taught me the game, like in D&D and stuff, and I've had to do that for several people. And the fact that that is available is amazing. Just that your players will have that, they can always pull it out to see what each thing is. So good.
Yeah, so if you looked at the screen, I tried to show you. It's in a tiny little box there because. So here, I'll do this. I'll transition back and show. So you got your character sheet, and then, like I said, they printed this extra sheet, and so basically you overlap it to say, oh, that's your class, that's your armor stuff, and you move to the other side. In fact, I saw on X today, formerly Twitter, Nat One Fun is someone I follow. He actually took these pages and he basically glued them, printed printed 2 of them, glued it to the back, and then folded them under. So that way it was all one sheet. And I thought that was awesome as a physical tool. And what that did too, and I mentioned this, and here's the thing, it reminds me of the Fantasy Flight Games Genesis system. In all of their beginner boxes, especially for the Star Wars beginner boxes, they come with character folios, which are basically, it's about 6 or 8 pages in a little booklet for a character sheet. And so you open it up, and what happens is they actually move the character sheet to the middle of 2 pages so that there's sideboards on either side with rules and explanations. And then it actually teaches you in those character folios how to level up. And so you turn the page, and then there's a new version of the character sheet that is now leveled up, and there's the rules for how to level up on the side. So very similar, but obviously Darrington Press did their own take on it, and it is a much more literal sideboard for the sections of the character sheet, and I think it's fantastic. I love it.
Right.
One of the touchstones, and they did mention this, we'll get to it in a few minutes when we look at the touchstones, but the Genesis system was a major influence on the duality dice and the nature of rolling with hope and rolling with fear, which I called it whenever we did our initial impressions. That was kind of one of the things. But anyway, the sideboards, the class character sheets with creation and leveling, and then the play guide, which was that PDF I was showing now. This is like a 1-page PDF that players that are new can have in front of them, and it has everything that they need to basically know how to make an action roll, which is essentially a skill check or an attack. How to determine what it is, knowing which color is your fear die and your hope die ahead of time. If you rolled with fear, critical success is when you get 2 of the same number on the dice, regardless of what numbers. So you could roll double ones, and it would normally fail the action check, but because it's doubles, it is a critical success. And then again, just quick references on short rest, long rest, some quick references for advantage, disadvantages, help, stuff like that, which is amazing. Yeah, and then it also comes with multi-classing rules, which again treats it like a sideboard, and it's a half a page that you stick underneath your character sheet, and that then also gives you access to that class basically on your sideboard, which is really cool.
Right.
So, but yeah, I know that I kind of skipped over it here, but let me just read real fast because I don't think you have the PDF pulled up, Jeff. But their touchstones, again, they listed a ton of them. But their touchstones, it says Daggerheart gleans inspiration from a variety of sources. Below is an abridged list of media that the design team drew from while crafting this game. TTRPGs included 13th Age, Apocalypse Keys, Apocalypse World, Blades in the Dark, City of Mist, Cortex Prime, Cypher System, Dishonored, D&D, Flea Mortals, For the Queen, Genesis, Lady, Blackbird, Mask, A New Generation, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, The Quiet Year, Wild Sea, and Slug Blaster. Like, that's a fantastic list of systems.
Yeah.
They also talked about, Wizards of Earthsea and Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings. They talked about movies and TV like Dragon Prince, The Witcher, Lord of the Rings again, Elder Scrolls Online. And then special appreciation, again, this is where I kind of called it. The Genesis system was a major inspiration for the 2-axis results of the duality die.
Right.
Cypher Systems GM intrusions paved the way for spending fear to interrupt a scene.
Nice.
D&D, obviously, the advantage and disadvantage was a big inspiration. They definitely do it a little different, which I like.
They do, yeah.
And it goes on. It goes on for sure. So, but you kind of mentioned it, and I'm gonna kind of show some of it now. But go ahead and let Jeff talk about the quick start again, and then I'll play. We'll go into that more now. So
sure, yeah. So the quick start. One thing I really like about the quick start is there's literally a point in it where it tells you like to read this to your players, right? And I'm pulling it up too. Like literally, there's a whole section called "Teaching the Game," and it literally has a section that covers the basics of the game. Then there's a section that covers, what action rolls are, how the duality dice works, how, fear tokens, and so it's like read this, read this, read this, read this, and like after you've read those 4 things, you're pretty much ready to play the game.
Oh, absolutely.
You are ready to play, your players are ready to play, and then as you're playing, you're gonna be learning more about the game, and you're playing a full-fledged adventure too. Now they have character sheets here for you to use. I think Seth and I, both of our guys, everyone wanted to create their own characters, which I was perfectly fine with.
Same.
So we got to take our characters and run through this adventure where it's pretty good. But for the GM, it has what to read, what's going to happen, what happens when you roll a certain way. But yeah, honestly, I'm in agreement here. This is probably the best quick start adventure I've ever seen.
Oh, hands down. It's the best quick start, best onboarding. Right. I mean, I can't wait to see this thing polished, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that it's not considered polished is crazy to say.
Right. And if you're watching the VOD, this kind of shaded concept art is throughout all the documents. But again, this is what I want to show you. This is one of the pre-made characters. If you are going to run the pre-made characters, this character has to be in it. It plays to the story. Again, we aren't doing it, but that's okay. We're going to I feel like we're strong enough GMs, we can do it without it.
Right.
But then it has the character sheet for this person, but also has, this is what I wanted to show off here. It has the print and play option, a character token there. Fantastic. And then again, showing off this particular pre-made character's character sheet. The sideboard for that character sheet. And then what it does have is colored examples of the cards. And this is something that I'm just going to show here. I think because we try to stick within a limited amount of time for this podcast and video, we are not going to be able to cover everything in depth. I think we will have to maybe have some shorts or some other videos sometime if we do want to cover some of those.
Absolutely.
And we will have an actual play on our actual play channel at some point. We'll go ahead and record one of those for it too, so that'll be a little bit more long form. But when you make a character, every character has an ancestry, which is akin to race. They have a community, which is basically the town or village or wherever you were raised, and then it also has a subclass card. So this character is an elf. They are a sorcerer with the primal origin, and then they are loreborn. So their community is loreborn. Not going to go into that, but there's different communities that you could be raised in. You could be raised in the wilds, raised in a rich family, raised in all sorts of things. And then there's domain cards, which domain cards are basically your class abilities and spells. Right. And I say that because if you're a fighter, obviously it's not a spell. It's going to be an ability. But again, this gives a great breakdown of the makeup of the card. So for example, this domain card, Rain of Blades, it has a recall cost. What that means is as you level up, you gain more domain cards. You can only have 5 active at a time, but you can actually spend a stress, which is a resource in the game, to pull an inactive ability out of your vault in the middle of battle or whatever. Awesome mechanic.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then it gives all the rules there for it. So, and then there's some more characters, but like we were talking about, I'm going to scroll down here to where it talks about the learn to play. Awesome. It talks about the game master adventure and what we were saying, teaching the game. This section, if you have the PDF, you could literally not read anything, sit down at a table or online with a group and start in this section. And by the end of it, all of you will know how to play.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you don't need to read the rule
so
book.
Impressive to me.
It really is. And so these little kind of grayed out boxes are what you read out loud. And like I said, it has you read out loud the teaching mechanics. We're quickly going to cover the basics of what you need to know to start playing. And it just goes on from there. It's fantastic. So talks about action rolls. You have them it even sets aside time for you and the players to take a look at your character sheets. Talks about rolling and everything. Talks about combat and the action tracker, which is a physical thing, and just moves on from there. Teaching the game then continued, and then every one of these little things on the page that you see here are acts, and they're basically single page story elements that you get through. Myself and my group made it through the first 2, Act 1 and 2. Actually, I think we only made it through Act 1, maybe. But that's okay.
Right.
Because honestly, doing the character creation is really important to do as a group, to give yourself at least a little time, even if just for like a micro session 0, because they have you connect with all the other players in such a way that it makes telling stories together way more easy. So,
yeah, the connections. I was actually talking to a friend today. We're playing disc golf, but he's also a TTRPG guy. And they did the connections. They spent a ton of time. He says his favorite part of the game so far is just the connections themselves.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So good.
Incredible. So good. But again, that is us trying to encompass everything about this in the PDFs. I'm going to switch over here real fast just to show you Demiplane. 100% go to demiplane.com and then click on the Daggerheart Nexus and just peruse everything. It's free.
Oh, yeah.
You can create characters, and they absolutely do an amazing job. My only complaint is that, and it's really just due to the nature of it being a beta, we don't really have the ability for the character sheets to interact yet, like D&D Beyond, where if I roll, if I roll in the character sheet, because it has the ability to roll like an agility roll, or if I want to attack with my short staff,
Right.
I can come down here. It pops it up just like D&D Beyond. If I have advantage, I can click advantage, which gives me a D6, and it gives me a +2. I can hit roll, and look at that. I rolled with fear because the fear die came up higher than the hope die. But I still got a 16, so I could have succeeded.
Right, could have succeeded.
I just, a small minor negative consequence came out of it. So, love it. It's fantastic. Highly recommend you check it out.
Absolutely.
For sure. But I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics that stood out. We don't have a whole lot of time left, so we're going to try to do this briefly.
Very quickly. Okay. All right.
But action rolls, including advantage, disadvantage, and tokens. What is your first impression of that?
So, wow, I just blanked on that question. So one thing I liked about advantage and disadvantage is rather than like in, say most D20 systems, you roll just 2 dice, take the higher. In this, you actually just get to take a D6 and add it or subtract it if it's disadvantage. So I feel like that's pretty nice. That's almost, always a benefit. Action rolls themselves, I think using the duality dice, I don't know, it feels very fluid, and it kind of gives, you can succeed, but then it's bad, or you can succeed and it's very good, or you can like critically succeed with 2 1s, which is really cool. I don't know. I didn't think I was going to like the 2d12 because really it's the dice I hardly ever touch in my sets.
They're so misunderstood.
So misunderstood.
And so misused.
Yeah. So underrated.
I know.
I don't know. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. Of course, from the DM side, I'm rolling d20s, and so
that is one thing.
Is
absolutely, that's one thing that is some systems have. This is an asymmetrical TTRPG system, meaning that the players roll 2d12, which are called duality die, but the GM does not. The GM rolls a d20 for its attack rolls, and they're. I think it's a good reason. I think it's also because each one of the NPCs, the character that the GM is controlling, that they're not telling their story. We're telling the story of the players, and the GM is helping. So, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah,
my own.
I didn't.
Yeah, and I think too, playing in person will be a completely different experience because. The way that it is meant to be played is when you're sitting at a table with friends, you're going to roll your duality dice. But if you have any kind of modifiers, they suggest having tokens, physical tokens. So that could be like screws that are, Jeff had handy. It could be, I would say it could be other dice, but that might be confusing. They talk about glass beads or, little resin tokens or... something that reminds you of your class, they talked about like a druid having like little leaves, like little tokens that look like leaves or something. But the whole thing is that you will roll your duality dice, and if say you have +2, you would add 2 of your tokens. That way, when you throw it into the dice tray, it's a really easy visual representation of the total that's on the duality die. Plus the other tokens that are in the box, just automatically. And so that is an element of it as well, that, trying to represent everything that could be added is in there. You're not having to remember, this weapon has a +2, or I get a +2 because of rage, or I get a +5 because of fire damage, because of an ability that I cast earlier. You would literally add those pluses as tokens in your roll as physical, so that way you don't forget and everyone else can see it as well.
Right. So that's actually just a really cool concept, and I know playing at a table with a lot of newer players, keeping up with all your modifiers is actually something that's a big struggle at my table. So really cool concept, and it seems like they've actually simplified modifiers and stuff anyway. At least it feels that way. Maybe it's just because we're at level 1. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. And I think, so we're just going to move on from that because we don't have time. But another cool thing is armor health points, and stress.
Mm-hmm.
These are the basics of who your character is. Armor is not treated as an AC like in D&D. Okay. Armor is literally used to mitigate damage, which is a little, more true to form. But what's awesome is that it can break and you have to repair it. And that's one of the things you can do on short and long rests is repair things. Health points, instead of having like a pool of like 10, 20, 50, 120 health points, you have a very small pool. And so then you have these things called thresholds for damage. And so you have a minor, a major, and a severe threshold. And depending on how much damage is done, if it falls within the range of your major damage, you take 2 points of health of damage. If it's over your minor but below your major, you take 1. And if it's over your severe, you take 3. There's another mechanic that if you take like double that, I think it doubles the damage.
Really? I hadn't seen that.
It doubles your severe damage. Yeah, I've got to look that up still. We haven't gotten that far into damage yet, but
right.
And then stress. Stress is often used for, using your abilities. Like a fighter may, push themselves to the limit, causing some stress, but they're able to do like a really cool feat. Sometimes, there's not spell slots. It's usually stress, or you just cast it if you have that spell. What do you think? What's your initial impression of that system for?
So yeah, no, I really like it because it actually gives you a choice. It's not just like, oh, you just take the hit. You actually have the option to use your armor, which whatever your armor is. So whether you're wearing leather or plate or breastplate, whatever your armor is, it has a value associated with it. And you can, if you use your armor, then you can absorb some of the damage that you take by whatever your armor rating is, and that could take you down from rather than taking 3 ticks, you may go down to taking 2 or maybe just 1. And so I like that you have the option, but then your armor has, so many times you can actually use it before it breaks and you have to repair it at a longer short rest. So personally, I love it. I will say, like, I started kind of thinking through it, and this may be one of my concerns, is it is slightly complicated. I think very easy to get used to, but like say
it's different.
Say you're taking like 18 points of damage and your armor does 8. So you're like, okay, now I would take 3 ticks, but no, I'm going to reduce the hit down from 18 by 8, so I'm going to take it to 10. So now it's just a little bit of math you got to do quickly, which I think would come very easily after a little while. But
yeah, and the visual representations will help, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
There's another mechanic. We're not going to go into it, but the death mechanic is different. It's really cool. Read up on it in the rules. Yeah. But I really like it. Okay.
The death mechanic's very good.
Now, I want to talk about a few things. We've got about 5-10 minutes left on our timer here.
Plenty of time.
First of all, some concerns, gripes. I don't. It's in beta. I am.
It's in beta.
100%.
And they want to know your gripes. So if you play it and have a complaint, they want your feedback.
They don't want editors. So if you're just like, oh, there's a spelling error, don't send them that.
Don't do that.
If you read the rules, they say don't do that.
Right.
But yeah. But they do want feedback for sure. And first of all, I want to say this. For like this beta playtest pack is better than some of the TTRPGs that I have backed or bought that were fully published and released.
Yeah.
This is more, even though it's in concept, it's still more polished than a lot of those things. I am blown away by it. I am impressed. I really like it. I'm not going to necessarily like stop playing 5e or stop trying other TTRPGs just because I'm like, oh, this is my one.
Yep. This is the one.
But I really like it, and I definitely want to play it more. That said, there's some things that I have thoughts or concerns about, and maybe they could be done differently. I don't necessarily have an answer for that, but there are a few things. First, let me ask you, though, is it anything that jumps out at you, either from the things that I put in the notes or that I'll just tell you have on your own?
So I'll say the only two things that I thought of immediately upon playing, again, the armor thing that I just kind of mentioned, because whenever I was like going through it in my head, it almost feels like it'd be easier if the armor was like it would just reduce your HP instead of having to reduce like 8 from the damage you're taking, then figure out how many ticks that would be. If it's like, okay, you burn one armor and this would knock off maybe one slot of damage, but I think that maybe makes it too overpowered. But that will become easier. But when I was first thinking about it, it just seemed kind of complicated. So that was the one concern. And then the second is I go back and forth on my opinion of like open initiative. I like it for story purpose, but I
Mhm.
also know that every table has a few quiet characters or quiet players that aren't going to speak up, and so I feel like you can very quickly have the louder, more abrasive players take 2 or 3 actions at a time before, and really some of your other players never act just because they're not that forward. And so, but then again, that's something very easily fixed. Even my buddy said at their table when they were playtesting it, everyone had to go one time before someone else could go twice.
Yeah.
So it's very easily fixed. But that is my only concern with open initiative is for quieter players. They may just not get a chance to
Yeah,
speak up.
I think it comes down to the GM and the players to say, hey,
Absolutely.
when we go into any kind of action round,
Hmm.
and we're using the action tracker, there's
Yeah.
not going to be initiative, but the expectation is that everyone gets an opportunity to act
Hmm.
before you continue on,
Yeah.
unless you have a compelling reason, in which case communicate amongst each other.
Sure.
Like when we played, I had a reason that I really wanted to go after somebody did damage because
Right.
it would mean
Yeah.
that I got to do extra damage.
Yeah.
But I had to communicate it, and if you can communicate it in an RP way, if not,
Right.
then just no big deal. Just be like, hey, I have this ability, so I just want to go after someone who does blank.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's communication. You gotta, you
It
gotta
absolutely
open
is.
it up.
Yeah.
But I do understand that for sure.
Hmm.
I think there easily could be tables where people don't communicate that and
Hmm.
people run away with it. So,
Right. And my just immediate thought of what I would do at like at least my in-person table is I would give, everyone a certain color token that they would play on the action tracker. And then I would say, okay, no one can go twice until every color has been put on the action tracker at least once.
that's a great example, and
Right.
and that kind of ties into one of the things that I'm concerned with, and I'm sure this will be addressed in time. But at the
Mhm.
moment, if you're not in person, then it really falls on the GM to keep track of
Sure.
action tokens, because the purpose is that you have this action tracker, and kind of like in D&D or Critical Role, when it's like, well, let's roll for initiative. That is like the thing that starts combat. I could see this. Well, let me get out the action tracker. We're gonna start keeping track of actions. And it doesn't even have to be for combat. It could be for a social encounter.
Sure.
But having that physically there, uh,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do it
Are going to do it digitally.
digitally.
Yeah.
And so
And I
that'll
feel
be
like
a concern.
VCTs in time will correct that.
Yes, I think they'll have
We'll
it
have something
eventually.
there. But
But at the same
right now,
time, I think, like you said, having players have different color tokens,
mhm.
that's a fantastic idea for keeping track of who is,
Mhm.
who's taking turns.
Right.
So no, I think that's great. You could be divided by class or just by players.
Mhm.
Again, love that idea.
Right.
Also, fear tokens being a different color as well, I think
Mhm.
is important. So,
Right.
so yeah, a couple things that I had is some big questions. One, so this was one I heard on another podcast, actually, the Pocket Dimension podcast, their live show. They actually talked about one of their people had an issue with the name Seraph, which is kind of it's kind of a combination of a cleric and a paladin, and they
Okay.
use the word Seraph for this class. Like this is the call to class. And when they explained it, I was like, no, that totally makes sense. I don't like it either now.
Okay.
And the reason is because the word seraph in every definition means angel.
Mm. Okay.
And so they argued, and I agree, instead of using the word seraph for a class, make it an ancestry. I mean, we had the ASMR in D&D. Make it an ancestry. If you watch the Critical Role one shot in session 0, one of the first thing Liam does when he chooses to be a seraph is say, well, I don't want wings, so I'm not going to be this one. You know? And that's the thing, right? Is that seraph, by definition, is an angel. Whereas in cleric or paladin or any of those other terms are more generic and,
Sure. Right.
Because you don't have to be a cleric and be an angel. You don't have to be a cleric, in these fantasy realms. You don't have to be, in order to be that holy warrior, you could just be a normal human. Mm-hmm. But I think it kind of takes a little bit. So I did like that, their argument for that. And so I'll definitely be listing that in feedback. My feedback is, hey, I think you should change the name of this. But
right, fair. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Like, what do you think? Does it seem...
I mean, I didn't actually make the connection till you brought it up.
I didn't either until I heard it from somewhere else.
Right.
But
I imagine, I mean, the idea with it being like a cleric or paladin is meant to be like a holy warrior, which is probably why they went with that. But I definitely I see what you mean. It definitely feels like the name Seraph or an angel should be more of a ancestry rather than the class itself. I don't know. I'm not too taken aback by it, but I do get what you mean.
I just think there's a lot more. There's a lot better terms that could be, words that could be used. So
and they'd be more generic for what the character is. Yeah.
And also because they've got Guardian, which is kind of like a combination of a barbarian and a paladin.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what's really cool too is depending on what domain cards you get, you can either go in the paladin route or the barbarian route. That was really cool.
Okay, a couple other concerns that I had was so I love the idea of the cards, but I also kind of question the necessity of them.
Okay.
I think when they release this as a product, it's going to be a box set. I don't think there's any way around it. I think it's going to be a box set. It's going to come with all 3 decks of cards that you need. Class cards, domain cards, and ancestry and community.
Ancestry, community cards.
Yeah. It's going to be those cards, and I think it's going to come with it, which is great. I mean, I think they have to provide it in whatever the main box product is going to be. Right. Otherwise, it's going to get really... It may not be received as well if you have to buy each of those decks separately.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely not. But when they expand, they'll be like expansion packs of cards. I'm sure.
I think they could do an expansion pack, and it could be a smaller box that comes with those decks,
right?
And maybe comes with new ancestries and new communities and new classes. But again, it's not a lot different than having a new book that adds those things, but it's always going to have to be a box set. Because it's going to have to come with cards.
Right.
Or they're going to have to sell the cards separately. So, again, I question, from one standpoint, I like the idea of having the visual representation. Sure. In D&D 4E, they used cards a lot. Okay. And it was nice because your abilities and your spells, all the rules were on the cards. And that's what they're doing in
that is nice.
Daggerheart.
I mean, so far, I haven't thought much about the production side, so I haven't thought about that. But for me, again, working with newer players a lot of time, I love the cards. I love the idea of as you're building your character, it's okay, I'm going to take this ancestry, and I'm going to take this community, and I'm going to take these domain cards. To me, the character building and stuff seemed really fluid. But then I'm also kind of thinking, so do you just take those cards and write all that stuff down on your character sheet and still playing with a character sheet, or are you playing with your domain cards?
No, you have to. That's the whole thing, is that you have to basically have all of those cards out. Now, not all. Right. You have to have the 3 for your ancestry, your community, and your subclass, and then you have to have your 5 domain cards, up to 5 domain cards. Right. So at any given time, that's going to be the max amount of cards that you're going to have.
Right. So at any time, you're probably going to have 8 cards out there. But now I'm thinking,
and then possibly a
either
vault.
the players are going to have to buy their own cards, or the GM's going to have duplicates.
Well, I mean that's the thing, right? So if you have 2 people that want to be the same ancestry, or they want to be the same community, yeah, that's the thing, right? You're going to have to buy extras.
So I wonder if they'll have like a GM pack, player pack, or something like that.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I could see them having class packs for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Where they just, I want to be a class, and then you have everything except for the ancestries and communities, but all of the class cards. But they did that with D&D. They have cards for that.
I have a deck of cards over here somewhere. I don't know.
Absolutely, but at the same time, you can also have all that on a character sheet.
True.
Looking at the character sheets, even here on Demiplane, it does have them printed on here that you wouldn't necessarily need the cards.
Sure. Right, and so I wonder if they'll almost have it as.
Let me change that. On Demiplane, it has it on here.
Right.
On the practical PDFs that you print out, they are not there. You have to have the cards. So I don't know.
It will be interesting to see as they come more to that, like the production side, how they'll do it. I mean, I wonder if there'll be an option, like if there's a base set of the game where you're just using all handwritten character sheets, and then maybe the upgraded version has the decks of cards with it or something.
And along those same lines, I've heard creators talk about, you're going to need a lot of extra bits and bobs for this game. You're going to need lots of tokens. You're going to need hope tokens. You're going to need 2 different color D12, which that shouldn't be too hard. Most of us have more than one set of dice.
Sure.
But you're going to have hope. You're going to have action tokens at the very least. And then if you want modifier tokens, you could have different modifier tokens as well to roll. So that's a lot of bits and bobs. That's a lot of... Again, you can get away with it super cheap. You can cut out pieces of paper and use that. That's fine. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's going to take time. We're going to have to figure it out, see how it works. And
looking at what they have at the beta, I'm confident they'll come out with a good way to do it. Right?
I think so, but I think, and again, in D&D, I mean, I have 6 sets of dice next to me. So what's the difference between me buying, instead of 6 sets of dice, buying 1 set of dice or 2 sets of dice, and then a couple packs of tokens?
Right.
I don't think it's a big difference, but it could be a little bit higher investment for the players and the DM.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see how they'll do it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Any other last thoughts?
The last thing that I did want to say, that another feature that I love that we didn't actually hit was experiences. So you actually get 2 experiences on your character that can be anything you want them to be. It's an actual experience. So you could say that, you're an amazing tracker and you can have a +2. And so anytime that would come into play, you can use a hope to use your experience as being an amazing tracker, and you get to add 2 to your dice roll. Really cool mechanic.
It actually has mechanical value. It's not just character fluff.
It's not just flavor.
It's not just flavor.
It's actually valuable.
I do love that too. I think it's fantastic. You kind of mentioned it, but along with experiences, the other thing was the what was it? I'm actually trying to find it here on the character stuff. It's on details is what it is. Your connections with other players. They have come up with questions for each class, and it'll be you basically ask these questions of other players and have these other players answer questions that you then put on your character sheet. And sometimes it'll be like, what animal, as a druid, these are my questions. Yep. What animal do I tell you that you remind me of? Right. Or what's an affectionate nickname that you gave me? What did you confess to me that makes me leap out into danger for you every time? That I'm just willing to defend you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we talked about earlier when making those connections in a session 0 is amazing and vitally important, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I will kind of end with this. I think that honestly with Daggerheart, they've done a lot of things right. It's a very, very good game. And I'm excited to see where they go from here. I'm excited
Absolutely.
to play it more just where it is right now, but then really excited to see is what they change, what they improve.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for now. In fact, we went over. So, Matt, sorry.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to ask that you just let this slide. We missed 2 weeks ago because of just scheduling conflicts. So hopefully this extra 15 minutes makes up for it in this wildly popular beta review of Daggerheart by Darrington Press and Critical Role. 100% recommend you checking it out. It's free, after all. And we will have more on it, I promise.
Oh, absolutely.
With that, be sure to check out Love Thy Nerds podcast. We are part of their podcast network. You can check it out on their YouTube channel. They have podcast playlist as well as in their podcast feed and on the website as well. One of their cool things I love is their Today in Nerd History, which they put out every day for the date of the calendar. And it's about a 2-minute video. It's a lot of fun. But with that, we're going to end it. So from our table to yours, thank you for joining us on the RPG Rundown.
Until next time, may your rolls be epic and your stories legendary.
See you next time. Welcome to the RPG Rundown. I'm Seth.
And I'm Jeff. From Dungeons to Deep Space, we've got the systems and the stories for your table. Now, Matt Colville and the amazing team over at MCDM have released their in-development TTRPG system. They've released the first playtest packet of it, and the name has been revealed as Draw Steel, which honestly just sounds amazing. But they've released that in the custom system, and the backers received an email with the links to the packet for creating a level 1 character with only 5 classes to start, but enough to get playing. And I can't wait to actually playtest this. But today we're going to take a deeper look at Draw Steel's playtest packet. Before we do so, Seth, you want to go and hit us with some TTRPG news?
Yeah, absolutely. So, couple of things that have been in the news lately since our last episode. First, obviously, you know that we are fans of the Cosmere RPG, and their Kickstarter finally ended.
Never heard of it.
Right? I don't know. It's only the biggest TTRPG Kickstarter of all time now.
Oh my goodness.
Surpassing the Avatar Legends, and as also one of the biggest Kickstarters of all time.
Wow.
I don't know where it ranks, but it's pretty high because it ended with 55,106 backers who pledged a massive $15,149,874. Insane.
It's a little bit of money.
Insane. Yeah, they absolutely killed it. It's awesome. I definitely backed it.
Yeah.
And look forward to getting into it as things come down the line further. So, also, too, if you did not catch our actual play of the Bridge 9 adventure in the Cosmere RPG with special guests from the Pocket Dimension and Seth from Seth of All Trades. Matt was from the Pocket Dimension. And then also CJ from Next Gen Nerd Podcast and Hearth and Hammer. He's one of my players.
Oh, nice.
you should definitely check it out because it was a lot of fun. It was really good. And yeah, I think, that may not be the last time that we visit the Cosmere in an actual play. We'll see. We'll see where we go. But
yeah, no, I have my doubts that was the last time. And,
yeah,
what a collaboration! I mean, if you haven't watched it yet, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing?
Yeah, you should definitely
check it out.
But it's on the YouTube channel. It's in the actual plays playlist, so definitely go check it out there. Also, too, just thanks to our special guests for that because they did an amazing job, and it was a lot of fun. So, thanks to all three of you guys. Okay, well, there was also this other little tidbit of news with Wizards of the Coast. A little bit of controversy, if you will.
Wizards of the Coast doesn't do controversy. We know that.
Right. They're just so even keel and always listen to their players.
Always.
This
podcast wouldn't exist if they did that.
It wouldn't, honestly. So, similar to the OGL scandal of over a year ago, they made a little bit of a marketing blunder, announcing that they were going to replace everything on D&D Beyond, including all existing characters, with the 2024 rules updates for all said characters, which a lot of people were not happy about. They were definitely...
I can't imagine why.
They were definitely not happy about it at all. And I totally understand, because while I get you want the 2024 rules update, a.k.a. 5.5e, a.k.a. 6th edition, I don't know. It's
whatever it is.
a.k.a.
Pay us more money.
Errata for 5e. I mean, like, what? They could have gone with any of those options to be less confusing, but
right.
Anyway, they. I get if they want that to be the default, but yeah, like trying to force all the old character sheets to basically transfer over, that would break a bunch of characters and a bunch of...
It would break campaigns, dude.
It would break campaigns. It would break items and spells and all sorts of things.
Right.
And at first, they doubled down and were like, yeah, you're just going to have to homebrew everything.
Yeah.
Not
and the
well
thing
received.
As we talk about this, like, I feel like every time we talk about D&D here, like, it's in a negative light. We love D&D.
We absolutely love it.
Sometimes question WotC's human resources department or their public relations department.
Their PR, their marketing, all of the above.
Yeah, I really like. I don't. Sometimes it's just the way they try to like just force things on their player base. It's just kind of like, do you not want your company to succeed? Like, is there something really going on behind the scenes?
The problem, I think, is that there's somebody in corporate who's running those, as opposed to someone who's actually in marketing or actually in PR. I don't know. It's ridiculous, but there was another round of massive subscriber drops from D&D Beyond, which they pay attention to, and that, along with the big outcry of the community, they reversed course within less than 48 hours. So it was like they didn't even make it through the weekend. It was like Sunday after they announced it on a Friday. So yeah, that was interesting.
That happened
for sure. Thankfully, it didn't take as long. They did reverse course though, so we'll see. But yeah, that was interesting. The little tidbit. On a positive note, let's give them some positive news. I didn't put this on here, but they did announce that there was going to be more third-party content coming to D&D Beyond, which I am all for.
Okay, I like that. Yeah,
and they listed MCDM, they listed Kobold Press, they listed Ghostfire Games, they listed a whole bunch of third-party. Free League Publishing, which you're like, Free League Publishing, are they going to put other systems on there? No. Free League Publishing has some 5e content. Specifically,
okay,
they have the Lord of the Rings 5e edition.
Ooh, okay,
And
that's
so,
cool.
and that alone is almost a completely different system within 5e. So, I've listening to other podcasts talk about it. They were hopeful that this means that maybe D&D Beyond will finally be adding better homebrew tools for full classes. Because we can't do some of the homebrew classes that are out there that are very popular in D&D Beyond's current system just with subclasses right now.
Right. Yeah.
And so if D&D Beyond, their homebrew tools get better and they can allow for fully custom classes, that would make me take another look at it, honestly.
Oh, that'd be pretty great.
I love Alchemy RPG as a VTT, and I think that they're going to have some amazing tools when they finally launch 1.0. And they're very close to doing that.
Right.
But I think that, especially for playing 5e, because I still play 5e.
No,
I still want to play 5e. But I think for playing 5e, I think that D&D Beyond will still be probably the best option. And I do have an investment in D&D Beyond from years past that, if I can go back to it, then I probably would. So,
yeah, that's fair. And ultimately, D&D Beyond is very good. Like, I mean, D&D Beyond is the most intuitive way to get into like TTRPGs. It's the most intuitive way to.
It's the best character builder for sure.
It's the best character builder, like hands down. And I mean, I think that's probably one of the most frustrating parts. Is like it's the best character builder, and it's only 5e.
Yeah.
I know we have like Demiplane and stuff. Demiplane's good. Like we use
Demiplane doesn't
for
have their
Godsmear
5e
stuff.
character builder out yet.
Right. Well, I was actually meaning more for like other systems. I wish other systems had similar character builders. Then I'm like, Demiplane's is very good actually.
So. Oh yeah, very good. Okay, so that's all that we have for Wizards of the Coast and D&D for the moment. That we're going to cover.
Right.
Monument Studios, if you know us at all, in our former campaign in Hearth and Hammer and in my current campaign, all the music that we use is from Monument Studios. They have incredible movie quality sound effects, music, and they have been running a beta version of a soundboard essentially for the better part of a year and a half. It's fantastic, but they actually have a Kickstarter that is live now for a fully fleshed out new version of that soundboard platform. There's a subscription you can do along with that to be a part of it, but it's going really strong. There's about, as of recording, which we're recording probably about 4 or 5 days before this. But a couple days before this goes live. There's 9 days left, so there's probably be about a week left of the Kickstarter. And I know right now I think their goal was 50,000, and they're at like 200 plus.
Nice.
So they definitely met their goal and surpassed it in a big way. Yeah, and so I'm probably going to back it at one of the lower levels to begin with. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's some integration with Alchemy RPG as well. And so yeah, but their stuff's so good, so definitely go check them out. And then, last thing for the news today, The Expanse, sci-fi RPG, which is based off of the show, which is based off of a book. Excellent show and book.
It's very good.
And what I've seen of the RPG is really good, but we haven't played it yet, but it is on our list.
It is on the list.
But
we checked the list.
We checked the list. It is on the list. they're having a relaunch. So it's called the Transport Union Edition, and it is an update and revised core rulebook that actually takes players 30 years into the future in the Expanse storyline. It's 100% compatible with existing characters and ships. It just moves the timeline forward, and I love that because then So, as you know, BattleTech is one of my favorite universes, sci-fi universes. BattleTech is similar in that the rules are the same, but there's a timeline that stretches across like 100 plus years or more. And so you can pretty much pick and choose. Oh, I'm going to play in this time period. I'm going to play in this era. I'm going to play in the... So I love that. The rules are the same and backwards compatible with all of the old source books and everything. Everything's still compatible. They're just updating everything and moving the timeline forward. I love that. So, very cool. And that's, probably, this is probably bumping it up the list a little bit, but man, we've got so many on the list.
So it's a pretty long list. And the thing is like a lot of the games we were the most excited for, are coming out like all at once. Like those games were on the list, like DC-20, Daggerheart, MCDM, right? Like these games were on the list, but they were on the unreleased category, and then all of a sudden they just start dropping like one after another.
Really,
and that
really
is
at the beginning of the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just stole our attention for now. I mean, Cosmere RPG was just skyrocketed up the list.
Daggerheart.
I mean,
Draw Steel.
Yeah. I mean, but Draw Still is the last one in the unreleased category. So maybe after this one, we actually get to our numerical list.
I think we're gonna have to, yeah.
So going off that, out of my numerical list, my number one game is still City of Mist. Do you have an update to yours? Do you know what your number one game is?
I don't right now, honestly.
No? Okay.
I'm up in the air, but
okay.
But speaking of, they did just add City of Mist to Alchemy RPG.
Did they really? Oh, look, you're perfect timing.
So we'll see. But but let's move into our discussion for today.
Yes.
Because we're already 15 minutes in and we haven't gotten there yet.
We haven't even got there. All right.
We're gonna take a look at the Draw Steel backer playtest pack.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're gonna dive into it today because neither one of us have had much of an opportunity to look at it. So we're gonna go over, kind of hit the highlights, and then once we've had a chance to play it, then we'll give it a critical look.
Yes.
And so and then give it a good review. But let's go over into our presentation screen. If you're watching on the YouTube, if you are not watching on the YouTube, definitely go and check us out. YouTube.com/the RPG Rundown LTN.
Yep.
It is our new channel. So if you were following, if you're following our actual play channel and you haven't followed our new channel, or if you're following the Love Thy Nerd channel in order to get updates for the RPG Rundown, make sure to give our new channel a follow. It has all of our old episodes on there and our actual plays on a playlist there. So check it out. Give us a like and subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you think after we go over this.
Yeah, comments are huge. Would love to know what your thoughts are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Draw Steel from Matt Colville and MCDM. First of all, they did not launch on Kickstarter. They just launched on BackerKit. And so it was a little less publicized unless you were following MCDM. But they did raise $4.6 million. And have
a few people still found out.
And have 30,000 backers. So Matt Colville is obviously one of the biggest names in the TTRPG space. And puts out incredible work. But yeah, so that was really cool to see that. But they sent out the backer kit, and so we're gonna look at it.
Yeah.
There was a ton of stuff in here. We're gonna kind of hit the highlights.
It's and so it should be noted. as you're showing it here too, is that this is not the fully fleshed out rules guide or anything like that. Like it's literally a Google. I mean, not literally a Google Doc, but it's just a document. There's no images. The graphic, the art's not all there yet. It's coming. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, I would say, a Word doc.
It's a Word doc. Yeah.
So, but they did send quite a bit of stuff in this playtest pack. They sent
absolutely
a folder with some art for each of the ancestries, which is what they call their races or species. They sent character sheets. They sent a couple maps, because they did send actually 2 adventures, an intro adventure, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
And then a follow-up for that, which is kind of open world.
Nice.
Yeah. And then some tokens. They're pretty basic. There's not a lot of art on the tokens.
Right.
But then they sent a Draw Steel backer playtest letter, which I did want to just show for a moment. And basically, it was just kind of an open 1-page letter to say what's inside this playtest packet. They're super excited to show off the first playtest packet for Draw Steel, which is the name, which was also announced with this playtest packet. It's got the rules document for how to play, containing first level of 5 of their 9 classes, the Conduit, the Elementalist, the Fury, the Shadow, and the Tactician. So that's pretty awesome. I love that they're a little bit different named and not exactly standard. So it also includes all 12 ancestries that will be in the book, rules for character creation, combat, negotiation, and tests, which are skill checks. They're not the complete rules. They did mention that there's still going to be rules for crafting, research, treasure, downtime, and more. That'll be part of the final product. So this is just a little bit. There's a small bestiary that comes with it. And then there's 2 adventures. Like I said, Bay of Black Bottom is the introductory adventure, and it's supposed to take 2 to 3 hours to do, which is pretty short.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's the Fall of Black Bottom, which is the sequel, and it's serves up a bunch of combat encounters. They said it's also modular, so it could take between 8 and 16 hours to finish. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that they included 2 adventures for this playtest packet. But yeah, and then just a little bit of asking for feedback, talking about how the core of the game has been finalized, that it's a 2D10 system, and then some information on their subreddit and their Discord. So very cool letter there. And then looking at what else they included. We're going to get into the rules in a second, but there's credit. There's a credits thing. There's a cheat sheet.
Right.
There is also a license for it, for the moment. And yeah, so but let's dive into the rules, shall we?
Yeah. That is a great place to start, and that is, the most extensive thing that you get in this is the rules document.
Yeah, it's 127 pages, which for
all text.
All text. So you can imagine with art, this is easily going to be 200 pages. Yeah,
I think so, easily, yeah.
And that's just for the content that's in this playtest packet, which is, like I said, probably half of what the book's going to be. So Matt doesn't do small books.
No, he does not.
Which I'm totally fine with.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, like reading through, I'm excited about the game, because even as like I was just reading through what like the first words of this document, it says, "What is this game?" And as I'm like reading through it, it sounds like the exact kind of game that I like to run. First paragraph says, "This is a game about fighting monsters." about larger-than-life, extraordinary heroes plunging into battle against terrifying, monstrous enemies. Like that is just straight Matt Colville, and that's the kind of games I like to run. Like I like the big monsters. I like the heroic moments. And so he actually goes in, or whoever wrote this goes in to talk about how the game is there will be comedy moments, but it's not a comedy game. There will be horror moments, but it's not a horror game. And it kind of compares it to all these other games, but they say that it is a tactical game and it is a heroic game. And so their goal is to make a game that is tactical, that requires teamwork, that requires you to think, that requires tactics, but it's also heroic. So you're going to feel big and mighty and fight scary, monstrous creatures that are just daunting. And you have to actually work together with your team. Like, I don't know, like at least this first few paragraphs got me pretty excited. It sounds like the kind of game I want to run, the kind of game I want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love some of the game systems they referenced in this first paragraph too. They referenced Forbidden Lands, which I love. Call of Cthulhu, Shadow Dark. I think there's a lot to like about what they're presenting here.
Yeah.
And so they talk about it being a tactical, heroic, cinematic fantasy game.
Right.
And they give a breakdown of those 4 sections. But what does that kind of mean to you? Like, what do you take away from that section, Jeff?
Yeah, so for me, I think that it leads me to think that you're going to be playing a game that actually makes you feel like a hero in the story, right? Like, it makes you feel like you are the central focus of the story. Like, you're playing a character that's really out there making a difference, and it's tactical, so you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to actually work with your team. It's not just run up and hit something. You've got to actually tactically figure out how you're going to cover this. And I feel like at the end of the fight, you're going to feel like you actually won the fight. You actually got the victory, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think is that you're going to feel like the big hero that you are. You're the player. You should be the central focus of the story. And I feel like you're going to feel like that.
Yeah, and tactical to me also says, hey, this is played on a gridded map.
Yeah.
When you're getting down into the combat, that's what you're going to be doing. Being heroic but also being cinematic. Having those chances to role play, having those chances to have those really cool moments is something that I think is essential in a fantasy TTRPG.
Right.
So I think that's going to be great. I think you're right in that it's going to be just different enough from the kind of like D20 systems that it is going to have a little bit, maybe not more crunchy of a feel in the tactical combat nature, but I think because and I say that knowing some of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute.
Sure, yeah.
I think that it'll be just as fast as other games for combat and checks and stuff like that. But I think that it'll probably be rewarding for players who enjoy that tactical strategic element a little bit more. So
right. Yeah. And I am one who does, like, as the DM and as the player, like, I love those combats where you're like everyone's standing up looking at the map and like thinking just what you're going to do. Like, I don't know. Those are some of my favorite moments in TTRPGs.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. I love those too. But, they do give a good brief overview saying if you're coming from D20 fantasy, there's a few things that you should know. It is a 2D10 system. And one of they give you a few examples of things that are different. So attacks automatically deal damage.
Yeah,
basically,
that's interesting.
There's not a roll to hit.
Right.
It's a roll to see how awesome of a hit you do.
Right. Yes.
And so you can have a bad turn. You can have a tier 1 result that's not awesome. But at least you're making progress. The trick is who's making progress faster, you or the monster. Because they too are not missing.
They too don't miss. Yeah,
right.
That's fascinating.
So in that regard, combat doesn't take as long.
Yeah.
Which I think is good.
Should be shorter. Yeah.
I think it's for people who have that tactical mindset. it helps people from getting bored
Mm-hmm.
in combat.
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean, especially if you go through 5 rounds or 5 player turns,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to your turn and then you miss and you feel like you've done nothing.
Yeah.
And then you're done.
And then you got to wait another 10 minutes to do it again, by the time it gets back around to you.
So, I do like their approach here. You don't need to rest all the time. You don't have to have short rest and long rest in order to recover what it is, your stamina and your recoveries to continue on through combat. Also, the character options are different. Matt Colville, again, is known for his creative world building. And so, things like their character classes, he mentions that the conduit class is basically a cleric, but in other ways it's very different. There's going to be some cool archetypes that are different, and we'll get to see those, I think. So, also the bonuses and penalties are going to be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
When you're always doing damage, when you're always hitting with your abilities and attacks, then you don't need those big swings in heavy damage, a plus 5, plus 10 to damage, you don't necessarily need to roll, 20 dice worth of damage.
Right.
So I think that's fine. I think that's great.
Yeah, well, they even talk about, because it's a 2d10, so it's still, you're still going to 20. And so you think it's very similar, but they actually had done the math and found that the 2d10 system is actually quite a bit different than just a d20 system. And so the smaller penalties, the +1 or a -1, is actually quite a bit different than if it were just being rolled with a d20. Now, I don't know any of the math, but they say that, and I believe them. I believe they did the math. I'm not going to do it, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot of skills, they say, meaning that
there is a lot of skills.
I think there's going to be a lot more, you're going to have a lot more specific skills, I think. So, which is great. I'm all for that. So, but yeah, so that's kind of some of the differences. What about the basics, Jeff? What are some of the
real
things
quick
that
on
you
the
see?
skills? I'm guesstimating. I counted about half and I was at 30, so I think there's about 60 skills.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of skills. So as we're kind of looking at the basics, let's start with something that we are all familiar with as you're building your character, right? I guess the very basics is it's going to play like a traditional fantasy TTRPG. You're going to have a GM, or what they call a director. Personally, I don't like that, so I'm going to go back with GM for me. But that's maybe just someone who's stuck in his ways a little bit. But you're going to have the GM, and you're going to have, they say that, it's almost like a shared story experience. You're going to, the GM's going to set the scene. The characters are going to respond how they're going to. And if there's ever a chance of failure, the GM will have them roll some dice to see how well they do on that. And then it does specifically say when combat begins, it's time to use a square gridded map.
Yeah.
And so, at least even in the rulebook here, there's no theater of mind. He's saying when combat begins, it's time to pull out a map. And I'm all for that as someone who can't remember things very well. Theater of mind, often I'm like, so where are they? Who is it? What am I fighting? And so they do kind of add that. Then whenever you get, what do you want to say any more about kind of that, just the basics of that?
I think that's a fair, distinction. Okay. I think there are a lot of people that can play Theater of the Mind really well. I think there's a lot more people who need the visual aids.
Right.
And so I think that's completely fair. Also, who doesn't like to see a map and miniatures on the table or on a virtual table? So
yeah, so good. Absolutely. And I do love here, they set a little scene, the director says this and these players respond this way, and then right as it gets to the point of combat, it's not roll for initiative, it's draw steal. That's that's what you say right when you go into combat, and I think that's pretty cool. But kind of as we move through that, we're going to go into what they call characteristics. We might call them ability scores, perhaps, or abilities. And so what we have listed is might, which is basically your strength, and what I would say is like your strength and constitution if you have a D&D background. Your agility, which is they say your coordination, your nimbleness, right? Your reason is the other one, which is kind of like your logical mind, your education. So I'd say your intelligence and your wisdom. Then you have like intuition, which is your instincts or your experience, and then presence, or your personality or your charisma, right? So these are what we're working with, and all of these you're either going to have the two extremes are you can have a -5 or a plus up to a +5. So from -5 to +5, and they say as a general basis, a normal average human would have a 0 on about everything. So if you can imagine, that's kind of your scope of what the difference would be if you have a negative or a plus in something.
I like how they say a baby bunny would be a -5 on might.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I mean, again, that's not too different. Like we're used to in D&D 5e. D&D has your ability score, but then the bonus for the score is -5 or +5 in the extreme. Right. So,
yeah, that's still fairly, for most of us, that's pretty normal. Then it kind of jumps into dice here, which we've already kind of talked about. You have the 2d10 system, which if you've been looking at some of the newer systems, like we have Daggerheart that came out, and it's a 2d12 system. Now, significantly different. The 2d12, obviously, just different numbers, but also you have a fear and a hope with Daggerheart. In this, you just have 2d10. They don't necessarily mean anything different, but that's what you're going to be rolling for your power rolls. I think is what they call them here.
I like that they also it's really just 2d10s and 2d6s is all that you need to play the game. They talk about d3s or like 3-sided dice, but basically you're just going to roll a d6 and count it as 2. And count it's going to be 1 2
like
3,
a 1 2 is a 1, a 3 4 is a 2, and a 5 6 is a 3. Yeah.
So there's not an actual 3-sided dice you have to worry about getting. Or anything, but it's a lot simpler as far as what people need to play.
Right.
But yeah, then like you mentioned, there's the power rolls and the power roll outcomes, which are the tiers.
This is particularly interesting, I thought.
Yeah, so there's 3 tiers. What do those entail?
Yeah, so whenever you make a power roll, and they kind of give some examples, if you're going to attack or you're trying to sneak past a guard, or anytime you're trying something with an uncertain outcome, you have basically 3 tiers that your roll can fall into. And so it says if your power roll is an 11 or lower, so 2d10, you roll 11 or lower, you get a tier 1 result. Now, this is the worst result. It says if you're using ability, a tier 1 result means you still do something, but the impact of what you do is minimal, right? With this result, an attack ability might deal a little bit of damage and not do much else, right? And so, but then if you roll a 12 to 16, that is a tier 2. And if you roll a tier 2, obviously you do a little bit more. You do a little bit more damage, or you succeed more. And then you go all the way to a tier 3 where it's a 17 or higher, and obviously that is the highest tier. You're going to do the most damage, and you're going to do all those things. I wanted to say, kind of tag onto that. There's something in a moment we're going to talk about called edges and banes. It sounds like advantage and disadvantage, but it's actually quite a bit different. In the sense that rather than like rolling extra dice, you actually just get to add a +2 or a -2. But you can actually double up if you have like 2 edges. And we'll get into what those specifically are. But if you get 2 edges, it automatically bumps you up 1 tier. So it's not, you don't get +4. It's instead of rolling a tier 1, you now automatically roll a tier 2. Or instead of, if you had rolled a tier 2, you automatically roll a tier 3. And I think that's really cool. Like that's just an automatic benefit. Right? Yeah. Like you automatically deal more damage. It's not like, because I've rolled advantage and rolled 2 D20s under 5.
It's a genuinely unique take on...
It is.
On, that kind of system. So I am interested to check it out for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so edges and banes, you mentioned those, but let's go ahead and mention it. So an edge represents situational advantage a hero or an enemy has when making a power roll. For example, a standing hero who makes a melee attack against a prone creature gains an edge on the power roll for their attack. It's very similar to advantage in the situational effect. But the application is where it's different. Instead of, instead of rolling 2 dice, you add 2 to the roll. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
and
you can have a double edge or a double bane, absolutely. Or they can cancel each other out. If you have one edge and one bane, they just nullify each other.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do think that's pretty cool. I do like that. Mm-hmm. There's also some things called hero tokens, which are kind of for that narrative swing,
right?
Essentially, and so we're gonna kind of leave that alone for a minute so we can get into some of the other stuff. But
keep moving on.
There's a lot, but we want to get into a little bit of the character building.
Right.
But yeah, I think obviously for the main portion of this, you still got PCs and NPCs. Mm-hmm. Sure. You have what was it with the victories that you said?
So victories, it's actually kind of plays into character building a little bit as well. So Draw Steel in itself is an XP based game. Now he does say in here that you can play it how you want. You can do milestone leveling if you want, but it's built to be XP based. And so what happens is every time your group wins a battle, right? And now he specifically says it has to be a contested battle. You can't. I think the illustration he uses, you can't carry around a bag of rats and just kill rat after rat and think that's a victory. That doesn't count. It has to be, the DM's discretion, right? But after every victory, you store 1 victory point, right? So say you go and you end up with 3 challenging combats. Again, rest is not a necessity. You get spell slots and all that back without having rest. So you could have 3 combats in one day. You get 3 victory points. Now, as soon as you take a rest or a respite, is what they call it, you actually get to, those victory points move over to XP points. And so you get to move those 3 over, and that's your XP. And you just keep building up. And I think for level 1, at 9 XP, you level up to level 2. And so after basically 9 victories, you level up to level 2.
Which is
pretty cool.
I think that's, I'm sure, 5e probably translates something to like that, where it's like if you were to have 9 combat encounters, or even just 9 encounters that give you XP, you'd probably be at.
It would be very close.
You'd probably be very close, because at level 1, an encounter is going to give not a ton, but I feel like it still takes a lot in D&D 5e to get to level 2.
So I do run XP on all my campaigns. One, because milestone leveling isn't great for me with ADHD. I often forget to level up my characters. Even if I'm like, at this point, they're going to level up, it doesn't matter. I'll forget. Whereas with XP, my players always remind me to tell them how much XP they got.
Nice.
And of course, I have my own kind of homebrew way that I award it based on successes, just whether it was in a conversation, it was in sneak, or it was in combat. But what I was going to say with that is it. Usually in D&D, it's based on your CR rating and how challenging the combat was. And I think really it probably comes out very similar. I'm sure the MCDM team did it on purpose, that it's probably pretty similar. Mm-hmm. But you're using much bigger numbers. And so with MCDM, you're going from level 1 XP to 9, and that's a level. Whereas in D&D, it might be 1,400 is when you're going to level up.
Right.
And I think just this makes the math a little bit easier.
I agree. It's like they've simplified the gamification of XP leveling, in my opinion.
Exactly. So. And I think that makes it a lot more appealing.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Because I feel like I would use this system as opposed to I don't ever use XP in D&D.
Yeah.
I am a milestone.
Oh yeah, I know.
All the way.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure drove you crazy.
I learned to play from you. No, I learned to play from you, and so I always did milestone leveling. But then my players would message me 3 months into a campaign. They're like, "So when are we going to level?" And I'm like, "I forgot we did that." I'm glad you mentioned it. And so I eventually just moved over to XP.
I mean, I've had players mention it a few times, but generally it's more because it's more often because we've missed some weeks.
Yeah, and it feels like a long time.
And it feels like we haven't leveled in a long time because But then when you think about, oh, well, in game time, it's been like 2 days.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
So-
in TTRPGs, leveling for the most part is slow, especially, I mean, I don't know if you still start all your campaigns at 3, but I always start my campaigns at 3.
I'm
And-
pretty
and
partial
so-
to it. Maybe
Yeah. And so going from 3
2.
to 4 is a lengthy amount of time.
Now, I will say, with all these other systems that have come out,
Mm-hmm.
all the new ones that have been coming out have done a lot better by level 1, as far as like making
You're right.
it appealing.
I was talking
to,
5e specifically there.
Yeah.
I always
But
start
5e
5e at level 3.
it's just like I said, a lot of times maybe I'll start at 2 for like the first session, but then have them be level 3 by the time we get to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that works.
So-
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so just a minor snippet about the lore of Draw Steel. The world is called Orden. That is the kind of like material plane or main lands or world environment, planet maybe. And then they have the timescape, which is the, similar to the multiverse or the Tales of the Valiant Labyrinth. So there's multiple planes, multiple worlds, and so that's the timescape. And so they give some really cool information on that. Not going to go over it right now, but I think it's a really cool system and sounds fun for sure. But it does tie into some of the character creation. So that's what we're going to finish the rest of the episode on.
Right.
Is making a hero. Okay, we're not gonna make a hero per se, but we're gonna look at each step and the things that they included to finish off. So, making a hero. If you're not the director, then you create and play one of the main characters in this game's story. A hero. Your hero is a person motivated to fight forces of evil, to protect the innocent, but each hero has their own personal reasons for doing so. You don't have to be a pure beacon of good. Heroes have flaws and are complex, just like the people in the real world, but your hero should be someone who isn't afraid to battle monsters for altruistic reasons. If you're only interested in playing a money-grubbing sellsword, you can achieve that with these rules, but you'll likely be happier playing another game. I thought that was an interesting distinction. They're like, hey, this is for the high fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
You're a hero. You're the good guy. You're going to defeat monsters, save the innocent.
So happy.
I agree.
I like it really
love
does.
this.
Yeah.
I am not ever going to be playing an evil character.
Mm-hmm.
I may play a chaotic character, probably more on the lines of chaotic good though.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually in my session
neutral,
0,
but yeah.
I will go over with my players what it's going to be, because like I like to always tell people before they start making their character, I'm like, this is a good campaign. You are expected to be heroes in this. Or if my players want to play an evil campaign, I just need everyone on the same page. But if you're playing something I've like pre-written and pre-set up, you're probably going to be the hero.
Well, and
I need you to
I'm
do that
just
in some way.
Personally, I'm probably not going to run an evil campaign.
Yeah.
I may have a campaign that would maybe have like be a little bit more dark, but it's still going to be based on a company of heroes kind of thing. So that hero's journey. Heroes can have flaws.
Yeah.
Flaws are fantastic.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
flaws.
Flaws are
But-
great.
Yeah.
Until they affect the rest of the party.
Agreed.
way.
I do like this as their kind of statement for what kind of game this is going to be.
Yeah. Really just, I mean, to me, it also makes me happy because just even the repetition of the word hero, it's showing like you are a hero. Like, I mean, you're creating a hero. You're going to be the hero. Like,
Absolutely.
I think it just sets you up for that, which I like.
They talk about the first session and creating your hero, your player character. So there's step-by-step rules in here. We're going to go kind of quickly through them so we can talk about the big three things: the ancestries and the classes, and then talk a little bit about those. But they have you think about what kind of character you want to do, create and play. Then you choose your ancestry, which they have 12 ancestries. I'm going to list them now, and we'll mention them in more detail later. But they have devils, they have devils, which are kind of the tieflings, dragon knights, dragonborn, kind of, dwarves, Hakan, which are kind of half giants.
Half giants. Goliath-ish.
Goliath-ish,
you know,
yes.
if you will.
High elves, humans, mnemonics, which are... they're kind of extraplanar beings. So they're beings from another plane, essentially.
You happen to have them up on the
no, we'll show them in a second.
Okay.
Orcs, polders, which are the half-sized ancestry. So think of them as kind of a combination of gnomes and halflings.
Right.
Called polders. Revenant, which are undead.
Right.
Time raiders, which are also extraplanar, kind of. But they have 4 arms, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. I'm excited to see what comes out of that just mechanically as well.
They talked about how you're not going to get like 4 attacks. You know, it's not a thing. So
I don't want to play it now.
He already said that. So
well, my NPCs will get 4 attacks. No, just kidding.
But then, and then the last but not least, the woad elves, which are wood elves, kind of, but they're very different. I think they're all very different. Cool. All of them are very different, and so I love that they're different in that regard. Then you create a culture, which is your hero's culture. So your ancestry will give you your hero a number of like physiological benefits. Your culture describes the community that raised you. Gives you languages and skills. Then you have your career, which is different than your class, by the way. So it's what you did for a living before you became a hero. I love that. So I love that it's like, hey, you used to have a career. You know, maybe you were a woodcarver. Maybe you were a mason or a blacksmith. So no, I love that they have that. And then they also mentioned there's going to be a whole bunch of crafting rules that are coming later. Excited for that.
Yeah, so that is one of the things in the all the skills. I said there's close to 60 skills. There could be exactly, I don't know, but in that they're kind of sectioned off, and there is a section for crafting skills. Yeah, and there's like alchemy, blacksmithing, architecture. That's exciting. That's very exciting. Yeah,
that's one thing that 5e doesn't do as well as other systems. So
yeah, now there's homebrews out there that make that amazing.
Absolutely,
it's not built in.
Then there's your class, obviously. And again, they said they're going to have 9 classes, but they're only giving us 5 for right now. But what I think is really cool is that, well, hold on. Let's see. So there's a censor, a conduit, an elementalist, a fury, a null, a shadow, a tactician, a talent, or a troubadour. So those are all 9 classes.
That's all 9 of them.
So we do know the names. However, for this test, we only have Conduit, Elementalist, Fury, Shadow, and Tactician.
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be cool. Then your kit, which is your gear, obviously. Add free strikes. Every hero has the ability to make free strikes under certain circumstances. Extra attacks that don't require your action. You can also make a free strike as an action on your turn, though you'll usually have a better option for your action. Your class might grant you a free strike option, but each character also has 2 standard free strikes. A melee weapon free strike is a melee attack made with an unarmed strike or an improvised weapon. A ranged free strike is a ranged attack made with an improvised weapon. So, interesting that those are free strikes.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see that. But then there's also complications. So, you know.
Well, real quick, I wanted to at the free strike just with for the example of the tiers that we talked about earlier. With say the melee weapon on an 11 or lower, you deal 2 damage. On a 12 to 16, you deal 6 damage, and a 17 plus, you deal 9 damage. So that's where your tiers kind of come in. And again, if
Yeah.
you had an edge, you'd automatically get to bump it up. Or I'm sorry, if you had a double edge, you'd automatically get to bump it up one. That's where just having double edge could automatically take you up to 9 points of damage.
No, I do like that, and that's a great place to show that example.
Right.
Okay. So then there's complications, which are, an event that left you with a benefit and a drawback. So it's kind of those character flaws and character traits that you would do. Then choose some more details about your character, and then make connections with other characters or stuff like that, I love that. Okay. There's rules for character advancement. We're not going to go into that.
Right.
But then we go into ancestries. Mm-hmm. And Matt Colville just does such a good job with his ancestries because they are familiar yet completely different. And I love that. So he has a really cool kind of introduction to that. It's a little, he gives lots of little narrative cinematic examples, which is pretty cool.
Of course, yeah.
But then he says, starting size and speed. So unless otherwise noted, everyone is a size 1M, which I'm assuming is medium, and your speed is 5, which I'm assuming is 5 squares on the grid.
Squares. Yeah, everything is in squares. So
as opposed to
not feet or anything like that, just 5.
That's one thing that I feel like a lot of newer systems are doing. They're getting rid of the conversion.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they're just trying to simplify things, like just simplify it. Why do we have to go 5, 10, 15, 20? I mean, I guess that's easy. Most of us know how to count by 5, but
I think it's trying to, the old, like all the systems that use those are trying to make it immersive, saying, "Oh, you ran 5 feet," and so in my mind, I know
that
what
makes.
5 feet
I mean, that does make sense. Yeah.
Unless I'm European or other people who don't use the superior measurement system of feet, yards, inches. I'm just gonna make everyone mad.
I can't even. I'm about to leave.
Don't act like you don't.
We actually had a long conversation about this at Reach Conference this week, and I can't even remember why, but we were talking about like the different measurements and how it happened. I don't know.
Okay, so we already mentioned what they all were, but you've got devils, which are the kind of tiefling characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to kind of skim the benefits. So, fiendish features, okay? You could have... So, here's the thing. Each of the ancestries, you have options to choose from. And so, when you create a devil character, you have 3 fiend points. Cool. It is very cool. You have 3 fiend points, and you get to choose which characteristics of a fiend you want to have. So, for example, do you want to have a barbed tail? Your pointy tail allows you to punctuate all your actions. Once per round, you can deal 1 extra damage on a melee attack or a free strike because you have a barbed tail.
Because you have a barbed tail, and that's 1 fiend point for that.
That's 1 fiend point. Or you could have beast legs. So you could have the strong legs that let you improve your speed. That's 2 points, though. So you could have an exposed skeleton. Very cool and creepy sounding, right? Your bones are visible, but they're hardened above your skin, granting you weapon immunity too. So glowing eyes, hell sight, horns, a prehensile tail, wings, all of these have a point cost, and so you can mix and match to get to 3.
So you're you can play 3 of you in your campaign could be playing the exact same ancestry and still be wildly different from each other, right? Like you have different things you're good at. I think that is such a cool idea, and I don't know that I've seen this anywhere else actually, that you can customize your ancestry itself to give yourself real in-game benefits.
Yeah. Let me show an example of a devil, by the way, because they did include an art folder with an example of each one. So if you're watching the video, you can see an example here. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have it already open.
Which is funny to look like, even at it. I assume you have the image up now. Like looking at this, they are
Almost.
wildly different, right? We have two devils that are
They
very
are.
different. Like even to the feet, to the tail, to obviously
Oh,
the horns and the coloration. Just kind of showing again how different you can build your character.
absolutely, absolutely. So, also, I find it funny that they have this devil in like a old school robes with a
Type
judge's
thing.
wig. Yeah,
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 well,
absolutely.
yeah. I don't know what's going on here.
I don't either.
But it's cool. I'm cool. I'm there for it.
Yeah. So, okay. So then we get to the Dragon Knights, which are very cool as well. Again, they give you some really cool lore and flavor for it. But then you have, as a Dragon Knight, you have the following benefits. Okay, you have Worm Plate, which means that you have hardened scales, granting you immunity 5 to one type of damage. And it gives you basically cold, corruption, fire, lightning, or poison. And so it's kind of that, choose your damage type.
Right.
Then you also have knighthood. So the legacy of the dragon phalanx lives in you. Choose one of the following benefits. So you automatically have Worm Plate, which is the elemental. It's the elemental immunity. But then knighthood, all dragon, all of the said characters are dragon knights.
Right.
So I love that.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big fan of
so
knights. But you have knighthood, so you have you get to choose. So then it says the legacy lets you choose one of the following, and then there's 3 options. So you have Dragon Rush, which as a maneuver you can fly in a straight line up to your speed, and which so allowing you to fly. Draconian Guard or Draconian Rush, Draconian Guard, which lets you. It's basically, what's the ability in D&D where you can, if a creature next to you is attacked, you can basically, you're triggered to guard against the blow and reduce damage for that character.
Yeah, I know
that.
which one you're talking about. But it's not.
And then Draconian Pride, which again you can use the following ability. You basically let out a roar, and it's that kind of like breath weapon ability, but at their own special take to it. So again, with tier 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and the tiers are so good. They're so cool.
Yeah,
because it's not just damage. Like there's also like push,
damage.
So you can actually move them. There's a push 1, and tier 2 you get to push 3. At tier 4 you push 5, and you give them the frightened condition.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Which is really cool. Yeah.
So that's the Dragon Knight, and again, let me show off the art for that. Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, absolutely. And again, you can see how kind of different the characters are here.
Yeah. Yeah, so cool. So, okay. Then we have dwarves. Okay, dwarves are not your typical dwarves because nothing that Matt Colville does is typical.
Exactly.
So dwarves, hold on. There was one thing I needed to read about dwarves that I was going to say here. Let's see. Where was it at? Okay. This is kind of to tell you, remember, we are dwarves. Our strength is the strength of the earth, the strength of the marble column that rises to the heavens, the strength of the granite foundation that reaches deep into the ground. But what is the value of strength if it's not used in the service of justice? So I love that as a dwarven hero. Dwarves in this world, they have... they are the colors of stone, which I love.
Right. Yeah.
So as a dwarf character, you have the following benefits. You are grounded. Your heavy stone body, you are made of stone, it seems. Your heavy stone body and connection to the earth makes it difficult for others to move you.
Yeah.
So automatically can't be moved as easily.
Yeah.
Runic carvings. basically, because you're made of stone, you have runic carvings that you can carve magic runes on your skin. And then you can, let's see, you can change or remove this rune within 10 minutes of work while not engaged in combat. So you can change the runes on your skin, which is crazy. There's one for detection, one for light, where your skin sheds light. It's so cool.
That's really cool. 10 squares, too. Like, pretty
10
bright
squares
light.
is pretty bright. Or voice. As a maneuver, you can communicate telepathically. Oh, awesome. Or detection is you can choose a specific type of creature, like goblins or humans, or an object, such as magic swords, and you can detect them. So cool. So cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, love that. And then your spark off your skin. Your stone skin affords you potent protection and extra stamina. So cool.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Okay. We gotta kind of speed this up a little bit.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think we're probably getting close to time, and there's several more ancestries to go through.
You know what? We've gone through 3.
Yeah,
but
just trust us that the rest are going to be equally as awesome.
So elf woad. I'm going to show you the pictures at least. Okay.
Yeah, let's go through the pictures.
So you have the elf, the woad elves, which are
sort of a wood elf, but definitely a different appearance.
I'm going to actually go in the order of the pictures. So there's the dwarfs. They look awesome. Love that. Then there's the high elves. Okay. So kind of your traditional elves a little bit, but again, very unique and very cool traits. The woad elves, which appear to have bat ears.
Right, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they're very interesting.
Very druidic, very forest wood elf motif. Right. Then there is the Hakan, which are the half giants.
Which
very
look
cool
awesome.
Looking. Yeah. Then there's the humans, obviously. I do need to read what's on the humans.
I was going to say, yeah, because humans, Matt really likes humans in his games, and so...
He does. He wanted them to be the coolest humans that you could come up with.
Yes.
And so, let's see. Let's go to them real fast. Humans. Human benefits. As a human character, you have the following benefits. Detect supernatural. Okay? As a maneuver, you open your awareness to detect supernatural creatures and phenomenon. Also, you're resistant to supernatural. Automatically.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And then on top of that, you have, staying power. Your human anatomy allows you to fight, run, stay awake longer than others, and increase your recovery by 2. So
yeah, your number of recoveries by 2.
So yeah, that's just awesome. You can detect undead and constructs and creatures from other planes, and then you have a resistance to magics from some of those. So that is probably one of the coolest humans, not just you get an extra ability point.
Right.
So
it's noticed that like in this world, humans actually have some special abilities.
Yes. Love that.
Yeah.
So then you've got the mnemonics, which, like I said, are the extraplanar beings, ancestry.
Very cool looking.
Kind of space elvish, maybe. I don't know what to compare them to. But I mean, this girl has a helmet and a ray gun.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well.
Yeah. So I think I really do think that it's like that very extraplanar kind of cool things. Then you have orcs, which are awesome looking.
Very cool looking. Yeah.
They have this kind of facial ridges and stuff like that that are different. Having played Cosmere recently makes me think of the of the listeners.
The listeners, yeah. No, I thought the same thing. If they were red, uncanny.
Yeah.
You've got like the striping and stuff on the skin.
Yeah. The polder, which are the small form factor, small halfling gnome. Yeah. Yep. The revenants, which are the undead, and then you've got the time raiders. Again, very familiar.
Not for attacks.
Very familiar looking in the kind of green skin and like crazy colorful hair and stuff. But yeah, 4 arms, so that's going to be different. So anyway, those are the images for them. If you're not a backer, but you can get a hold of these, definitely check them out. The mnemonics are very cool. I'm just going to give, hold on real quick. I'm going to give one ability for each of these things. So Woad Elf's benefits are like graceful. You're very swift. And then you can alter your appearance, which is very cool. High Elves benefits are glamour, which is like gives you more presence. Also otherworldly grace, but then unstoppable mind. So kind of that magic mental resistance. Hakan, like I said, they kind of half giants. Their benefits are Doomsight, which I'm not sure what that does. But then you also have extra might, and you're undaunted. You can't be weakened, which is cool.
Right.
We talked about humans. The mnemonics, their benefits are lightweight. Your silicone body is aerodynamic and low in density. So they're made out of silicone. Okay, cool.
Right. That's very interesting. Okay.
And then they're keepers of order. So orcs, they have the Bloodfire Rush. Love it. Very orc themed.
Very orc like, yeah.
Yes, and they're relentless. Again, very orc themed. Polder benefits are Poltergeist. Wah, wah. No creatures have line of sight on you. You can basically hide, which is kind of cool. You can shadow meld, definitely be more stealthy, which is cool. Revenant, former life. There's some really cool undead vibe abilities that are going on there, which is very cool. And then you're also tough. Your undead body grants you, some immunity stuff, which is pretty cool. Right. Time Raiders, like I said, as the last but not least, they have foresight, meaning they have a little bit of peering into the future. They have 4 arms, which I'm sure is going to make them more dexterous. And then they have psionic gift, which is cool. So,
yeah.
So,
before we end, I wanted to hit one last thing.
Yes,
that
go
would
for it.
Normally be kind of boring in every other game, but I don't think anything in this game is actually going to be boring. And that's kits, like your gear. The crap you pick at the very end of making your character.
Yeah.
In Draw Steel, there are actually martial kits and caster kits, and they're not just very basic. Like, I mean, obviously they come with what you want, but there's actually abilities and stuff that come with the kit you choose. Like, for instance, the martial artist kit gives you a +3 stamina bonus, a +3 speed bonus, and +2s all the way across all 3 tiers of your melee weapon bonus damage.
Yeah.
It also gives you a signature ability within your kit, which is Battle Grace. It says you feint to move your enemies in a perfect position, and Battle Grace actually does damage and based on the tiers, and then you can swap places with a target on a tier 2 and tier 3. Like, again, this is that tactical stuff that was talking about in the beginning. But there are different kits, and all the different kits have different bonuses and different abilities and things. And there's kits for martial characters, there's kits for casters.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that just made this part of character creation super exciting, because normally you're like, I don't know, which one of these gives me the best stuff to use. But this is actually giving you like abilities and bonuses and stuff.
And so too do the careers, which are like backgrounds. So you've got, I was a criminal, or I was a gladiator, or a laborer, or a mage's apprentice, or a soldier. So it's going to be awesome. We are definitely going to have to go through and have a character creation, an actual character creation session, and then actual play.
I really think so. The character creation is so in depth. I'm really excited for it.
I am too.
Which is honestly, not. I mean, it's a good thing, sure. But I thought this podcast was going to help me choose a game system to switch to. But
No,
now I've got like 4 that I want to switch to, and I don't
it's
know what to
not.
do with that.
It's not.
It's making it much harder, actually.
Okay, a little bit about the classes. There's only 5, so we're going a little long, so bear with us. But the classes, the conduit, which is kind of like a cleric, okay, the power of the gods flows through you. So there's, deities that they give information on. But then there's powers like prayer or domain effects. And so they have a whole bunch of domains. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of flexibility within characters.
Right.
Just looking at this, knowledge domain, life domain, love domain, nature domain, protection, storm, sun, trickery, war, those are all just within creation, death, fate. These are all just within things that you can have at level 1.
This is great.
So, and then there's so many things, to choose from to customize it. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be, like I said, the conduit is the kind of cleric type class, but I think it's going to be, you're going to be able to you have much more customization options for each class.
You can build your character exactly how you want it.
Yes, absolutely. And so there's, like I said, there's a bunch of abilities to go through. Not going to go through those right now. Elementalists, okay? This is, to me, the druids, the shamans. So I like how you could probably go both directions with that. But yeah, it lets you. Let's see. Level 1 features. You can manipulate 7 primal elements of the timescape: air, earth, fire, green, rot, void, and water.
Okay.
So it's almost like green and rot are kind of, it's like growth, life, plants, and then rot, death, decay, debuffs. And then void, which is the like extraplanar energy kind of thing. Yeah. So I love that. I think that's awesome. And like I said, being able to customize that there's 7 different directions you could probably focus.
Right, yeah, I know.
So yeah, I
that is again at first level. You get your element
because these are all first level builds essentially. So it's not just that. It's so the elementalist. I'm not sure. I feel like it's speech of the wild, practical magic. These things again. These kind of make me think of shamans and druids and stuff. So, but there's things like fire lance or void ray, which are some magic abilities. So I think that's pretty awesome. A fury. You do not temper the heat of battle within you. Unleash it like a raptor or a panther or a wolf. So I don't know. Maybe this is a little bit more of the druid. But it's also like the warrior.
Maybe. I was thinking this was like the barbarian, but maybe I'm wrong.
Actually, yeah, you're probably right. So, primordial chaos is your ally. Leave it to others to use finesse. Yeah, so I take it. It's
you get a rage. There's rage. It's a barbarian.
That's true. It's a barbarian. Rage, mighty leaps. Primordial aspects: berserker, reaver, stormlight. They all say you channel your rage. Channel your rage. So yeah, barbarian for sure. But like
barbarian.
Just the
mighty leaps. You just always succeed on might tests to jump. Just always succeed. That's crazy. That's awesome.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
I know we're going through this, and again, there's kits in here that, like you said, have some really cool stuff that add to it.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, what am I looking at?
Shadows. Subtlety is your art, the tip of the blade, your brush. You studied at a secret college specializing in alchemy, illusion, or shadow magics. So I don't know. I mean, like to me, this is like
I think this
um,
is well.
a
This has
sorcerer
animal
or
form.
warlock. Sorcerer or warlock, though, is kind of like what
Okay,
I'm getting here. So yeah, it does have animal form. You're right.
like at least one, you get to be a bear,
I don't even
and
know.
I don't
And,
know.
and again, these are the differences that Matt
Right.
Colville and MCDM. It's nothing like some. There are some things that are similar and some things that are not.
Hmm.
So
Right. Yeah.
um,
And so that's things I don't think we're going to be able to lock it into one particular thing.
no,
Like this is druid-esque because you can take an animal form, but it's probably not just a druid. You could probably build this in many different ways.
yeah, but then you have Code of the Blade, which is like poisons being,
Hmm. Oh
uh,
yeah.
oh man, there's so many cool stuff.
This is gonna be fun to play. I'm
It
excited. It's
is.
gonna.
It
It's. I
is.
feel like it's gonna be crunchy. Like I mean, I really do. I think it's gonna live up to that
Yeah,
crunchy, tactical, heroic game, like it said in the very beginning.
absolutely. Absolutely. Tactician, strategist, defender, leader. So to me, this is the fighter, but it's the tactical, you
Hmm.
know, smart military mind version of that. You've got mastermind, vanguard, insurgent. Love these things. The tactical
Yeah. Very
doctrines.
cool. Oh,
Um,
the sorry, I just realized the coat the blade that you've seen
yeah.
that was actually part of the shadow. The shadow was
Right. Right. That's I did.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought I said that. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I was still looking at the Stormlight.
No. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. That was a shadow.
Okay, yeah,
So yeah. Very cool things for the tactician as well.
yeah.
Um, so again, a very very quick glance at the classes.
Yeah.
Uh, because we're trying to get through it here. We're already at an hour and
Yep.
20. So, sorry, Matt. Sorry, not
Yeah, this
sorry.
one's
Honestly,
yeah, because there's a lot to go through, and which is funny.
there
There's a
is.
lot to go through in a 120-page book,
Yeah.
but no pictures at all. So there's
But
really a
no
lot to cover.
pictures. So, but
Hmm.
hopefully our excitement will help you be excited about going through this and
Sure.
reading through it because there is a lot. I mean, us going through it together has made me more excited about it for sure.
Honestly, yeah, me too.
And so yeah, the kits are very cool. Again, Matt just making things that much cooler than what they are in kind of what we're used to. So,
Right.
um, yeah, absolutely. The kits are so cool.
Hmm.
Caster kits, and then yeah, it goes into complications, modifying your story, tests, when to make tests, how to make tests, difficulty and outcomes. There's a lot of the details on that as well. So, but yeah, there's, like I said, we wanted to take a look. We weren't going to read it all verbatim, but there was a lot we did want to kind of highlight because there's just so much, Jeff,
Right.
that sets this apart. And I'm looking forward to running it.
Yeah. No, I honestly,
So,
I am too. I like I said, I think it's making my job really hard of trying to figure out what system I really want to run. You
it's
know,
true. It's true.
like yeah, because there's so many good ones out now.
I feel like at some point, Jeff, just on a non-content creation side of things, I
Yeah.
might have to start being like, okay, for this quarter of the year, these three
Right.
months, I'm going to run a game in this system,
This
and then I'm going to
system.
run
Yeah.
a campaign in this system the next quarter, because
Hmm.
honestly, I don't know how else I'm going to get to all these. So
Right. No, I'm kind of the same, and like I feel like I'm really not gonna know which system fits like my campaign and stuff the best until I try all of them in an extended form.
yeah,
Like the one shots give you a good idea, but like really until you're running and you're actually going climbing through levels and you're going through adventures and you're telling stories, like then you'll know, how well it fits.
and like I don't know. Honestly, as we grow in our
Hmm.
knowledge and our experience and our love of all these other TTRPGs,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like too, it's like, you know what? I don't have to have a single campaign.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, you know,
Honestly, like
um,
I feel like I'm almost at some point going to be moving to one system, but still just bringing in elements of other systems and have some sort of like weird Frankenstein system that fits my party
yeah,
the best.
I love world building, and so I'm happy to make new worlds for each one of these systems.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was a little bit longer than our normal episode length. Sorry, Matt. But thank you all for joining us for this first look at Draw Steel, the MCDM new TTRPG system from Matt Colville and friends, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, no,
I know you are too. But yeah, again, definitely check out the YouTube channel if you have not. Give us a like and subscribe at the RPG Rundown LTN. We're still part of the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. However, we just, we were able to kind of, like, YouTube basically changed to where we could all have a channel underneath LTN. So definitely check that out. Find your other favorite shows there. Definitely check out some others. And props to them. So we love LTN.
Absolutely. I'm LTN shirt on right now.
I know. I did have mine on yesterday, actually. So
yeah.
Well, I think that's going to do it. So, again, hit us up on social media if you have any thoughts or questions. You can find us on X, Instagram, TikTok, any of those things. You can also find Jeff and I. There's going to be links in the show notes for those as well. But from our table to yours, thanks for joining us on the RPG Rundown.
Until next time, may your rolls be epic and your stories legendary.